OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
And a very good morning to you. Welcome along. It's St. Patrick's Day and we are here live. Can we prove that we're here live, Eoin? How do we prove that? How do we prove that this isn't something that we just whipped up yesterday?
You have newspapers beside you.
I know, but do the people really believe that we couldn't just fake the newspapers? Like look, it's a COVID story on the front and it's Rachel Blackmore winning on Honeysuckle on the back. We could have done that 6 weeks ago. We knew what was going to happen.
The crystal ball, actually, we could have done this on the 1st of January when we recorded that slot, to be honest, because we always know what's coming.
Apparently we're not out of the woods yet with COVID. That's what the headlines tell me, Eoin.
God, I mean, welcome to St. Patrick's Day 2022, everybody, is what we'll say. Rachel Blackmore will probably still be dominating at Cheltenham. COVID will still be unsolved in this country, and we will still be working on St. Patrick's Day.
Honeysuckle, the victory yesterday was absolutely sensational, and I hope people were getting on board the Honeysuckle bandwagon over the last few weeks, because the victory yesterday was almost a carbon copy of the victory at the Dublin Racing Festival, where she just took off. And when something like that happens, you're like, oh, this is kind of special here, because this is a good field. She's up against other champion horses and just absolutely dominating them. And it was a little bit later than she took off in Leopardstown, but it was like, wow, hairs in the back of the neck. And it's hard sometimes to judge what the quality of the field is like, but you can tell that this horse is a super horse.
Yeah, I didn't see the earlier race that you're referring to, the Leopardstown race. A complete carbon copy. Was it this is exactly how Honeysuckle likes to run?
Well, at Christmas, so rounding the final bend, she just took off and was like, can you do that? Is there an engine? If it was in cycling, you'd be like, wow, she pressed the button there. And that was like, wow, this is sensational. The awful thing is that there is no crowd to witness, because that's when the roar goes up. There was a huge gamble yesterday where the price came in from 2-1 to just a shade of evens, which means that a lot of money had to be gambled on that horse. So there would have been a lot of people who were very happy when that happened, and that roar would have been guttural as the accelerator was hit, and it would have been one of the great sports moments of the year. I mean, it still is, but certainly, I don't know, I suspect if we have crowds, particularly at big matches in England, and if the Lions happens in England and all that kind of stuff happens later on, the year will be divided into two.
Yeah, I think as well with Cheltenham, there seems to often be a specific storyline that comes true over the course of the week, because of the fact that there are some heavy favourites, and because greatness can be achieved throughout the week, either from a jockey or a trainer standpoint or from the standpoint of the horse. And I'd imagine, I haven't been to Cheltenham, but once you're in that crowd and you're like, oh, there's all those storylines being ticked as Honeysuckle runs away from the field, and that just increases the volume coming from the crowd. So I'd assume that that's lost completely yesterday. And it's the one thing that everybody's mentioned in the build-up to this festival, not having that roar, especially for those of Irish connections, it is just completely missed this year.
Yeah, I actually, watching it, I can't remember if they were doing fake crowd noises or not.
Neither can I. They were, weren't they?
I don't know. I was about to say, if you can't remember and I can't remember, then they obviously weren't. So, and you said they were, just as I was thinking that. So look, I don't know, maybe somebody will drop a comment on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/offtheball. If you want to stream us live on YouTube this morning, maybe you're just listening to us as a radio show. You can do that every day, of course, as well, on OTB Sports Radio, which you can get on your Alexa or on your Google Home. You just say, Alexa, play OTB Sports Radio, and she'll do what she's told. Funnily enough. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number here if you want to get in touch with us this morning. We'd love to hear from you about anything that's going on in your life. If you're awake at 7:34 on St. Patrick's Day, if you've had to go to work like us, then we would definitely like to hear from you. The big news really yesterday was that CJ Stander was retiring just after getting his 50th cap, and there's been a debate about Stander's place in the team and how much of a nailed-on starter should he be, and yet he's always a nailed-on starter, which would suggest that the coaching ticket absolutely loves him, and they know that they can trust him and that he will deliver for them anything and everything they want when it comes to the game plan at 6 or 8, because he's played in both positions for us. I actually haven't looked at the split in terms of the number of caps, but it could easily be 50-50, and you wouldn't be terribly surprised to hear that. But it's a bit of a bombshell because he is so young, and you would say definitely still at the peak of his powers.
Yeah, he was nailed on as far as I'm concerned to start the next World Cup, assuming he was up to full fitness and fully contracted. That there perhaps isn't a whole pile of contenders coming up for that number 8 jersey in particular at the moment that you would have thought to yourself Stander is clearly a little bit ahead.
Caelan Doris, I think. I don't think he's an
Caelan
on starter
Doris,
for the next World Cup. I think.
Well, he is now, of course, and that would have been the question over the course of the last few weeks if Stander didn't play well and Caelan Doris was fully fit. Sorry, I actually completely forgotten about Doris there for a moment, but it would have been a Stander, Doris, Peter O'Mahony starting back row for this Six Nations, you'd imagine, if all three were fit. Now, of course, it's up to him to make his jersey his own, but it almost feels as if Stander was the set and forget player in that Irish pack where he was always going to be in there, and it's about who else is in the back row alongside him. He was the first name on that back row, so to speak. And it is kind of crazy that there were conversations about whether or not Stander should be in the team or maybe his value to the team. I think it'll probably become quite obvious over the next few months the value, or the next few years, I should say, the value that he did bring and the absence of him around the team, because he was just such a good player. And I think this weekend as well, it's fitting that it's his last game. I think in a game against the likes of England, somebody like CJ Stander is nailed on to be one of Ireland's most important players, because there aren't other players in that Ireland team who have the same raw power as CJ Stander, and raw power is the only way you're going to beat England. And I don't know. It's just going to be a massive absence over these next few years. Like, as you said, Doris, like, he probably needs to go to another level to reach the consistency that Stander had. Everybody expects him to do that because everybody thinks he's an unbelievable talent, and everybody has seen that with Leinster so far in his career. But I just can't look at this in any other way other than it being a massive loss for Ireland.
I think we constantly say the best ability is availability, and always being available like Stander was essentially over that period of time. That's why he's racked up the caps. And it's one of those other things that we take for granted, but we shouldn't take for granted, that your ability to make sure that you're out there week in, week out, puts you in for selection. And I think it's one of those things that makes coaches really value your contributions. And I think that's probably why he would have started at 6 or 8 most weeks if he was free. It would have been very interesting, I think, though, to see what would have happened in this Six Nations if Doris had been fit, because I think Doris was their starting 8 coming out of the last bunch of games, and it would have been interesting to see if they preferred Stander at 6 or if they wanted Tadhg Beirne at 6. And you thought going into the future that there was going to be some selection issues for Munster to work out, because obviously with Snyman now in the second row, they have enough second rows, and they all of a sudden had a lot of back rows as well. Coombs is coming on the scene, and you want to give him some game time over the next while. Now all of a sudden it looks like a fairly straightforward thing. You can have Tadhg Beirne play 6 for Munster, and assuming again everybody's fit, there probably won't be too many selection issues. So it takes a bit of a headache away for the next 18 months, but it's not one of those bad headaches that everybody wanted. It was like, look at the strength and depth that we have, that CJ can, or Coombs can come off the bench, or we can, if somebody gets injured in the second row, we can stick Tadhg Beirne in there too. So there was a lot of flexibility in having somebody who is as good at 6, at 8 as CJ Stander was. I do think that there was a good chance he was moving to the subs bench over the next 18 months if everybody was fit. But again, as I say, the best ability is availability, and he always showed up, and that's why he always got picked.
Yeah, like I'm not sure that have actually happened, to be honest. I think that the way in which he's been utilised by the Irish coaches he's played under just shows that he is close to the top of the pile. Like, maybe right after Sexton and Murray at their peak, maybe Stander might have been the next name on. I know James Ryan is obviously a guaranteed starter, but if you look at the evidence in front of us in terms of Irish selection over the last few years, Stander was right up there. And I do think that this idea that he might not have been a starter or his place might have been under threat, I think that was possibly played up substantially outside the camp compared to the reality inside the camp. I couldn't have seen, after this Six Nations in particular, him being dropped anytime soon. And like, it maybe hasn't been his best Six Nations, but he's still been really, really good. I think in the first game he was excellent, and like, I don't think his performances have dropped off that much. I just, to come back to this idea, I just don't understand where the question marks around Stander's starting place would have come from to be
Doris,
honest, because
from Caelan Doris. If Doris was fit, Doris starts at 8, right? I don't think there's any doubt about that at this stage.
And Stander would have started at 6, which I think similarly there would have been
Tadhg Beirne, like,
little doubt about. But like, the Tadhg Beirne thing then was probably more a reaction to Doris's injury, wasn't it?
Possibly, but maybe they wanted to see what he looked like there, because obviously they'd needed him in the second row, and finally we had Henderson fully fit and James Ryan fully fit, and it was like, okay, well, those two are playing there. Like, it's an interesting conundrum. certainly maybe you stick Tyburn on the bench and he doesn't get the opportunity to show himself at 6 because he can cover both second row and back row, and that gives you an extra space in the bench. But
here's the situation that might actually be the truth. CJ Stander is possibly better than Tyburn is, or than Caelan Doris will be. Now, I would like to think that Caelan Doris will be better than CJ Stander and his progression keeps happening, but there is a chance that CJ Stander is actually just the best player out of those three right now and will be the best player out of that three when all is said and done. Such is the quality that he's brought to the team and such is the power that he's brought to the team. Rugby can be a complicated game, but sometimes at its most basic, it is about who's the strongest man on the team and who's got the greatest grunt, and Stander certainly had that. There was a uniqueness about him.
So as a Munster fan, you must have loved having CJ Stander.
But I think it's going to be interesting after this weekend how big the send-off is from Munster, because I think it'll be a little bit closer to home, especially for those people in the real rugby hotbeds of Cork and Limerick who have been following this guy from the first minute he laced a pair of boots for Munster, comes in with only a few words of English and immediately makes his mark. Immediately everybody's talking about this guy as the success story of the project players essentially in Ireland. The guy who everybody stands up and looks around and is like, hold on a minute, this whole process that Ireland are going through is actually a massive success because of this one guy. And I think Gordon Darcy's making that point in the Irish Times this morning, that he has literally made a success of the entire idea of project players. Like, all he needed was CJ Stander for this thing to have been a success. So that it just speaks volumes of how successful he has been. And I do think it'll be interesting over the next few months, because I think a trophy against Leinster in a couple of weeks' time, potentially winning in Europe, that would be an unbelievable send-off for CJ Stander, even more so than winning a Six Nations, which I know obviously is out the window at this point.
So say I could offer you one of those trophies. You can't have both, because that would be ridiculous. You're going to take the one against Leinster, right?
Well, no. If you're offering me one of the trophies, you take the European trophy. But if you're
defeat by Leinster along the way.
Yeah, but I think it's more realistic to win the Pro 14 because it's a one-off game. Like, you could win against Toulouse and then all of a sudden it could be over in the next round, such as the quality and the depth that exists in Europe and against teams you might play. So if I wanted to put my eggs in the basket, I would put my eggs in the Leinster basket because there's a higher chance of winning a trophy, and it's Leinster, so it's a bit.
Okay, you can win one of the next two games. Which one do you pick?
Leinster.
Right. Is CJ Ireland's greatest ever import in terms of now I'm talking about who could play for Ireland, so obviously you can't put him in the same category as Rocky Elsom, can't put him in the same category as Eoin Asewa because they both won European Cups. Is he Ireland's greatest project player? Is that undoubted? Is there anybody who can hold a candle to him?
I think so. Connacht fans say Bundy Aki, given the Pro 12 victory a few years ago as well, and how that was a launch pad for him having a really successful Ireland career, which is not done yet. Like, Bundy Aki may have a part to play in this narrative just over the next couple of years, but right now, CJ Stander for sure. And like, to come back to this, I know I've said it like a million times already this morning. I genuinely believe they're really Stander, which might just become obvious over the next little while.
Your the Bluetooth on your speakers or earphones have just gone there, so we missed that last thing that you said. We'll come back to you in a moment. 7:44 this morning. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. John Duggan is with us. John, good morning to you. How are you?
Jarno, and good, and yourselves?
Yeah, let's hear what's happening in the world of sport, and then we'll talk a little bit about Cheltenham before. Obviously, we've got a full Cheltenham show coming your way at 10:30 this morning and every morning this week. So, in the meantime, what's going on in the world of sport, JD?
Man City, as always, just that juggernaut is unstoppable. 2-0 last night over Borussia Mönchengladbach, 4-0 on aggregate into the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Kevin De Bruyne and Ilkay Gundogan with the goals. So they're through, as are Real Madrid. 3-1 at home to Atalanta. They won 4-1 over both legs. Interesting story in the back of the UK Times this morning that Maheta Molango, a Swiss former player who spent time in England's lower leagues, has been revealed as a surprise choice to succeed Gordon Taylor as the CEO of the PFA. He's a 38-year-old lawyer. He's become the first black chief executive of a leading English football body, seeing off the challenge of Gareth Farrelly and Ben Perkis to get the job. Tonight in the Champions League, Chelsea with a 1-0 lead over Atletico Madrid at Stamford Bridge. and 4-1 win over Rome a few weeks ago. So Bayern Munich looking to complete the job at home to Lazio tonight. Gaelic Games training could resume in Northern Ireland on April the 12th. The Northern Ireland executive confirming yesterday that outdoor training in groups of 15 can resume on that day. However, Ulster GA remaining cautious, and they're going to continue to liaise with Croke Park. An interesting story at the back of the Star as well this morning. Katie Taylor set to face Natasha Jonas again. They met at the Olympic Games in 2012, and a bout could take place now on May the 1st, likely to be announced this week.
Okay, so some big fights being made by Eddie Hearn over the last few days. The PFA gig is obviously a sweet gig. Does the new chief executive get paid as much as the old chief executive? It was a couple of million a year, wasn't it?
He'll be on 500,000 sterling a year.
Okay, right. That's quite the pay cut.
That's a little bit of that's what they call a trim.
Yeah.
Which so that from what Gordon Taylor was on his most recent accounts, he was more than as high as 2.3 million at one stage, and recent accounts 2 million. 75% lower the salary will be.
Right. Well, that makes a bit more sense. Even at 500 grand, it's still quite a significant amount of cash as well. John, Cheltenham yesterday.
We'd all love it, Ger. We'd all love it.
We would. Cheltenham yesterday, the success of Honeysuckle, the speed as Rachel Blackmore said go was fairly phenomenal. The type of thing that should really be an Irish sporting moment for the next decade or so.
Ger, it was wonderful, wasn't it? I think you just tweeted wow, and I just tweeted wonderful, and I think that's what you're tweeting about. It's one of these things where you're actually in the living room, and it doesn't matter if you've had 1 cent on it. It's completely irrelevant, because all you're doing is this. You're just, come on, Rachel, come on. Because it's such a big story it's like front page of the Times today, the photo of Honeysuckle clearing the last, front page of the Irish Independent, the 2 main newspapers in the country. And it's just such a great story. The champion hurdle was first inaugurated in 1927 at Cheltenham. It's one of the biggest races in the sport. And for Rachel Blackmore to win it so easily and so deservedly, after all the years she's been trying, it was a wonderful thing to see. And she never had a moment's notice, and that's because she's such a positive rider. Her horses are relaxed under her. She's a stylish pilot. And for Henry de Bromhead and for Rachel, it was brilliant.
Yeah, an amazing kind of week it looks like it's shaping up to be for Henry de Bromhead as well. He's now getting mentioned by the English commentators as one of those big trainers over in Ireland, the likes of William Mullins, the likes of Henry de Bromhead, and it's been kind of a slow, steady climb for him to get to that point. But that's not one of those massive operations that didn't have millions and millions and millions behind them. That's pure hard work over the last 2.5 decades.
Absolutely. His dad Harry had a Cheltenham winner in 1993 when we had only a handful of Cheltenham winners back in those days. Harry de Bromhead, and Henry has worked in a lot of yards. He's served a long apprenticeship. He had a horse called Sizing Europe, who was a favourite for the champion hurdle 13 years ago, and then had a back injury and was disappointed in the race. Sizing Europe, though, then came back to win a champion chase. And I think that champion chase win for Sizing Europe with the Alan Potts colours put Henry on the map, and then he won the champion chase again with Special Tiara. So over the years, he's steadily had horses at a good rate. He'd be just below the Willie Mullins, Gordon Elliott machines in terms of numbers. But Henry de Bromhead has always been seen as a trainer who can get horses to jump. And he's seen as a very good trainer of classy horses. And it's no surprise that they sent Envoy Allen to his yard. So he's had some good horses through his hands. And the key thing about Henry de Bromhead's horses, they jump very well. And Honeysuckle, in a champion hurdle where you need to jump well, did so yesterday. Unbeaten under rules, 12 wins now between points and rules. Only 7 years of age, and she could easily do it again next year. And she looked very relaxed. We tweeted out a little video of her in her box that was sent to her by the groom. To us by the groom, and that was lovely to see. So they all seem to be doing okay in the bubble. Obviously, it was very strange for Rachel yesterday. You know, you're crossing the line in the champion hurdle. There's normally 70,000 people there, and there'd be a huge amount of cheers and into the winner's enclosure and Irish flags and everything. It was just complete silence yesterday. But I don't think, given she spoke to her parents, Joe was saying to her last night that it's any less sweet. It's just different. Yeah, no, it shouldn't be, hopefully, any less sweet. There's already calls for her to be favourite for the Sports Personality of the Year. We don't really make that much of a big deal of it here in Ireland, which I think is probably the right thing to do, because it ends up just being a massive distraction in England. But at the same time, she's right up there now. Well, in England, in the UK, it'd be, if she was English or Welsh or Scottish, she would be as simple as that. Like if Bryony Frost won the champion hurdle yesterday, she'd be a shoo-in for that. So here she's going to get it as well. But she's quite unassuming about that, and I don't know if she really likes to talk about it. She just sees herself as a jockey, and that's great to see. And like back in the day of Red Rum in the 1970s, his trainer Ginger McCain, would said publicly that women jockeys shouldn't be involved in the sport at all. When you had Charlotte Brew in 1977 riding the first ever woman to ride a Grand National horse. So even like Katie Walsh, Ina Carberry, none of them turned pro. They were both amateur jockeys. And Rachel took the gamble in 2015 of turning pro. In her first season, she only rode 6 winners. And slowly but surely, she became trusted and became rated by the O'Learys, who are tough at judging people in the game. They want to win. Michael and Eddie O'Leary, and they believed in Rachel, and Henry believed, and then she got better rides and she began to improve, and she chased Paul Townend all the way a couple of years ago for the Jockeys Championship, and she's only just behind him now. She's ridden 84 winners. So this is a complete testament to hard graft. She doesn't come from a racing background, Ger. Like, she was studying business and equine science in university in the last few years. So this is a story there was no silver spoon for Rachel Blackmore, Killinall and Tipperary. And she was speaking yesterday about visiting Isterbrack on the school tour. And 21 years after Isterbrack won his 3rd champion hurdle, she's back in that winner's enclosure. Yeah,
pretty amazing stuff. John, good stuff. We'll talk to you a little later on. Guys. Cheers. You can get John's tips on otbsports.com and on the OTB Sports app. And of course, as I said, the Cheltenham Show live every morning this week at 10:30 on all of our social channels. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, when we go live, if you turn your notifications on, you'll get a little notification on that. Or of course, you can just be on the app and it'll come on live if you click the video button there at 10:30. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good mornings start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Here's what's coming up between now and 10 o'clock this morning at 7:51. We're going to talk to Louise Galvin right now. We've got the sports pages at 8:10. The Tight 5 with Neil Treacy at 8:20. Fergus McNally, who is quitting smoking, talking to us this morning at 8:45. After that, John Duggan's tips, his nap of the day. Dermot Corrigan is going to look back at last night's Champions League and look forward to what we can expect over the course of the rest of the tournament, essentially, and then some highlights from the football show at 9:30. Now, Louise Galvin is with us this morning. Louise, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, how's things?
Bit of a bombshell yesterday with CJ Stander announcing his retirement, but at the same time, you put all this stuff in the context of what's going on in the world, and he just decided that he wants his daughter to grow up in South Africa alongside his grandparents, her grandparents, and it's like, well, fair enough.
Yeah, and absolutely. I don't think CJ owes Munster Ireland or anything for the massive positive contribution he's made to rugby here and the way he's completely adapted and to rugby in Ireland and to life in Ireland and adopted Ireland, I suppose, as his home country. But I suppose there is that kind of question then of there's almost disappointment that someone that is still at the peak of their powers is retiring when they've just reached their 50th cap. We'll have the begrudgers and the naysayers saying, well, maybe this is a problem with project players if this is never really truly their home. When things like kids come along, then is that, how is this system flawed in that sense? Because we could have a Jack Conan picking up those caps, or we could have Rhys Ruddock picking up those caps, or someone else who's able to carry that experience forward with an experienced world-class number 8 then to bring into the next World Cup. So there is that kind of element to it. But listen, I'm a huge fan of CJ. I've actually really enjoyed one of the things with the lack of crowds is that when he this year, and when the ref mic picks up the back of the scrum, you just constantly hear him, whether it's from Munster or for Ireland, like, come on boys, that, and it's that positive, whether they've just retreated 40 metres, whether, whose put in it is, wherever the momentum is going, CJ's constantly, that positivity from him at the back of the scrum, I think, is just a small snapshot that we can see at home of what he brings from that, even that positivity point of view, that from CJ. And certainly the sound bites coming out of camp, that's certainly what we're hearing from the guys in terms of his contribution on and off the field. Yeah,
look, there was an outpouring of love essentially from Sexton and from Earls and from Peter O'Mahony, and we'll talk about that in a moment, because it was interesting that Peter O'Mahony was put up for media yesterday, presuming that the Ireland coach is not doing a Warren Gatland on it and sticking Brian O'Driscoll out the week before he drops him. So maybe that's a hint about team selection. Maybe it's not. We'll see as the week goes on. But just it is an interesting point there that you raise about the whole notion of the project players. I think it's possible to really love CJ and love everything that he's brought, and then to ask those questions about what is the right way for us to pursue this in the future, given that it's 5 years now. one obvious solution to that is to stop recruiting 23-year-olds and 25-year-olds and start recruiting 18 and 20-year-olds, which is, I think, already happening. And do we decide that actually, if our culture is going to be self-sustaining, that it's better to try and get people who will be here and, you know, hopefully enter into the Irish rugby culture afterwards and become influential in it, either through media or coaching or whatever it is? And do we stop looking for project players, or do we just accept that actually that's part of the transaction here? We need better players. That's going to cost us. They might not live with us forever, and who cares? I can't work out what the right thing here is. What do you think?
Well, look, I think the whole project players obviously going from 3 to 5 years is something that, you know, when you're recruiting players, either way, if they want to play international rugby, they really need to be ready to completely adapt into the society they're moving into, whether it be Ireland or Scotland or France, wherever it is. So that, you know, that has kind of, I suppose, helped from that point of view of the idea of people coming in and leaving again. You're contracted to play rugby. You're not contracted to live here forever, so it'll always be a bit of an issue. And players are well within their rights to move back home. And if they come in and make that positive contribution, which, like CJ, is certainly, I suppose, up there at Easton Sewa and probably the two guys that have contributed the most to certainly provincial rugby in Ireland. I know he says obviously it wasn't an Irish international, but when you talk about these players coming in and making contribution, they're probably the two guys that are up there, and we certainly wouldn't hand them back. I think over the years there's a lot of, you know, players that have gotten criticism that are selected consistently, and when you think about it, in the last year or so, people are still saying CJ, he just does it week in, week out. The abuse that his body takes, and he is so robust. I mean, when was the last time we worried about CJ not being able to complete a game or not being fit for selection? Like, he certainly doesn't owe us anything, and he's well within his rights to go back. But as you say, Ger, it's an ongoing issue. It's something we'll always have to be aware of, that if they decide to, you know, and in this case, we don't really know the personal details besides the fact that maybe with COVID, everyone's reflecting on their own personal story. But if something sudden was to happen, anyone's child or wife or whatever, they could up sticks and move home at any stage, and they're well within their rights to do so. And that's just, you know, part of the beast.
And I think that COVID has to be factored in here as well, because we had CJ on the show last year and he was talking about going back to South Africa during the first lockdown and spending a bit of time on the farm. If there wasn't a global pandemic, he might not have had the opportunity to do that. He might not have actually been drawn away from Ireland once again. And everybody was in this tunnel vision and way of life before March last year, which includes rugby players, which includes the human beings that are playing rugby. And maybe this is just down to the fact that the world has been turned on its head last year and CJ Stander has changed his mind about how long he wants to spend in Ireland. I think he deserves something of a free pass in that regard. Yeah,
I agree. So now, I'm not sure, you know, this whole retirement from rugby, in one way it's a bit disappointing that someone who's such a prolific player can just fully retire. But I also wonder, like, when he gets back, I wouldn't be hugely surprised if we don't see him lining out again down in South Africa. And I think that people might think then, oh, the statement was a little bit, just a little bit untrue. But listen, we'll have to take him at his word, because his effort and his communication certainly has been nothing but honest since he's arrived. So we'll have to back him for the moment.
The other thing that I think feeds into this is like, I'm not in rugby changing rooms with these guys at this stage, but the stories that have come out over the last year about Steve Thompson and Alex Popham and that group of players who are taking an action in England and across England and Wales, and some Scottish players as well, that must be featuring in some players, particularly who are just entering their 30s, going, I played against some of these people. Like, I was literally on the same field as some of these people. So they're not like, they're not 70-year-olds who headed the ball too much. It's not a far distant thing. And the science and the knowledge that's coming out so quickly, I don't know if that factors into anybody's thoughts about retirement and playing on. I don't know, but certainly if you had made your money and you could go back and do the thing that your family have always been doing with a little bit of a nest egg, and you've got your health, I can see why this might be a story that begins to happen for more and more people as they hit their early 30s in particular.
Yeah, I agree with you as well. I mean, maybe it's an incredibly mature decision, and one in 10 or 15 years to look back and say, wasn't he the smart guy to do that, to go out in a high? Like, as he clearly has massive mass on his family and putting them first. So maybe he is thinking about that, and the type of game he plays, offensively, defensively. I mean, if anyone's going to be at risk at, something like what Steve Thompson is suffering from, CJ could put himself in that bracket. I mean, you go playing rugby, you might expect your body to be a bit wrecked after it, but those players, they don't expect their head to be wrecked after it. So maybe he is going out thinking, listen, I've been lucky here. I've gotten on pretty well. I'm going to take my memories and my experiences, and I'm going to head off home, and thanks a million.
Yeah, I think that would be fair enough. Is Peter O'Mahony starting this game at the weekend? Is that why he was out doing media yesterday, or does it not matter anymore? Has that all passed, do you think?
I don't think that is all passed, but I think because we're going to have a few changes, I think one has an influence on the other, if that makes sense. I'm not going to answer directly. I think he could be starting if we see Tadhg Beirne move directly to the second row. Obviously, Tadhg Beirne is going to be dropped after his performances. I think the fact that we have to make two definite injury changes with Gary Ringrose and James Ryan out, then potentially James Lowe being dropped on the back of a performance. That's 3 personnel changes. Are we going to add in positional changes as well? Like, for example, if you start Ryan Baird and say, look, we're going to keep Tadhg Beirne in the back row. I'm going to bring Ryan Baird straight in as a direct replacement in the second row of James Ryan. Well, number one, it's obviously a lot of pressure on him, but we're also going to have potentially 2 more changes in the back line. And I'm also not sure if we're going to see Conor Murray starting this weekend. I'd certainly hope that we're going to see him coming on earlier than the fact that he didn't come on at all against Scotland. So I'm kind of circling a wagon here that if we're looking for a bit more experience because of the other enforced changes, I could see Peter O'Mahony starting. I think when someone serves a suspension, they serve their time. I don't think the team need to suspend them further. What the real question is does he have the match fitness and sharpness to come straight into the cauldron against a dominant English side that's going to be very confrontational and physical?
Yeah, they've beaten us up like really badly. This is us going up against the school bully who has absolutely stolen our lunch money every time that we've met for the last couple of years. And like Owen said earlier on, the only way to beat them was with power. I don't know about that though. Because we've tried that, and it turns out they're stronger than us. So what can we do if it's not just raw power? What's the game plan for us beating this England team at the moment?
Yeah, well, I think a huge weapon for us at the moment is our line out, whether it's both attack and defensively. It's been motoring along pretty well since Paul O'Connell's come back in. Now, obviously, the guys have mentioned James Ryan's role in that, so he's not going to be available. But I think that's another reason why Peter O'Mahony might come in, because again, he's a brilliant line-out operator, especially defensively. So are we just going to play territorially and try and pin them back and try and put pressure on their ball? Having said that, there's not much wrong with England's line-out as well. I know they've had a change from Jamie George at the start of SixNations, and Cowan Dickey has come in and done well and looks to probably continue in the hooker role. But and obviously we're not going up against a weak line-out in Itoje and Ewells. At the same time, I think we are going to kick the ball a lot against England. I don't think we're going to try and run over the top of them. And at times, our box kicking was inconsistent against Scotland, which again is why I think if we're going to go down that route, because ultimately we did get change from it, why I'd like to see Conor Murray start if we're going down the box kicking route, because he's a lot more consistent. It's very difficult when you're a winger and you're not sure if it's going to hang up short or whether it's going particularly long. It completely changes your mindset, and you're trying to read it after the ball is kicked, but you're also trying to avoid the slightly lazy runners that are trying to put you off track. Whether you're going to try and make a ruck from whoever's collecting the ball, whether it's contestable, whether actually you're overrunning this ball, you need to completely pull back. So I think if we are going down that kicking route, I would like to see Conor Murray starting. If we're not, then I would continue with Jamie Gibson-Park, just to give him a little bit, just to give him 3 or 4 games, a bit of continuity, and see what he can produce against an English side.
how do Ireland turn territory into more success against England? Because it seemed to work the opposite way in the Nations Cup game at the end of last year.
Yeah, and we all know that with the likes of Eddie Jones, like he's quite happy to let the opposition take the ball and kick it back to them as well. I guess we're looking for a bit more from our attack in general, Eoin, and I think an interesting soundbite actually from Keith Earls, when not obviously a man that speaks an awful lot to the media, but he was speaking more so about CJ and about attack. He was suggesting that, you know, even as a back three and as a back line, they're trying to take more pressure off their 9s and 10s. But what's happening sometimes is that there's 2 or 3 different guys putting a call out there, and there's a bit of a miscommunication over they're all the right call if they're done, but which one are we going to go with? So it's about one guy maybe taking ownership outside of that 10 channel and taking the pressure off Johnny and going with it. So they're obviously looking at trying to get the ball to the wings a little bit more and not just power play up the middle. I think we're seeing a nice little bit of interchange as well, with some deft hands between the backs and forwards a little bit more. It's not probably as much as we'd like, but you know, obviously Tadhg Furlong, Tadhg Byrne, must be the Tigers, but you know, they're particularly good at that lovely little inch play, that pull back pass, that they're still a threat carrying the ball directly to the line, but they'll have the skills and to pull it back and put their whatever back usually is out the back of that into a little bit of space. So I think it's a little bit, we'll obviously have to get our go forward ball. I think our breakdown has been particularly accurate, which you need to be to then clear that ball away off the deck. And then it's a little bit of the mixed bag where Gibson Park does come in, like he offers that little bit of a threat. He likes to take a step or two with the ball, get runners off him. We don't want him to get isolated and turned over, but I think that little bit of a mixed bag and playing a little bit more to the wings. But I think from the guys, what they're saying themselves is they need to be a bit clearer with their communication when they are taking the pressure off Johnny and they're making the calls about which call they're going to go with.
From what you're saying there, Louise, it does sound like the wingers aren't getting a fair crack at the whip to show their skills at the moment. Now, I know James Lowe has obviously exposed himself defensively over the last little week, but it does seem that there's a lot of work to be done here to get the best out of them offensively.
To get the best out of them offensively, is it? Or
offensively, yeah. As in giving them the best opportunity to attack.
Yeah, look, it's as a winger, it's the most difficult thing is often to get on the ball or get involved. Like, I know we're all saying Keith Earls had a pretty good game the last year, but it was all defensively.
Yeah.
If you actually look at the carries and meters made, not because, you know, due to lack of opportunity, more so he didn't get on the ball as much. And James Lowe is certainly someone, look, we're going to use his boot defensively. It's a weapon of his, but we want him getting the ball and running. Whether he gets the opportunity or not this weekend, I'm not so sure. Particularly if we have the likes of Jacob Stockdale coming into the side or Jordan Larmour, that we want to use them, particularly those two guys, because their skills are more prolific in attack than in defence. We want them getting the ball. We want them creating one-on-ones. We did see with Lowe the last day, just, you know, hugging the touchline very early on in the game and getting a nice, you know, making a nice bit of ground up, but we just never seem to get the ball into their hands and give them that opportunity of a sort of 1v1 in the Scottish game.
One of the big debates that we've been having is clear signs of progress or not from the coaching ticket at the moment. My argument at the moment is that we've made the decision that we're going to pick a head coach who doesn't have international head coaching experience or head coaching experience. So there's going to be a bedding in period. We either accept that, and that was part of the decision, that we knew that was going to be the case, and we allow him to work his way through that and move on, or we're like, oh, listen, this guy has no experience. You know, either it was a stupid decision in the first place, or we understood how long it was going to take him to get up to speed. And I think that if you look at the difference that O'Connell has made, like, there are clear signs of progress, that the coaching ticket has been freshened up. They looked at a problem, they diagnosed that problem, and they moved on. And that's really all I want from my head coach, is that we're making progress, we're getting better, we're building on what we have. There is some strength and depth emerging in positions that we didn't have. And, I think I'm a bit more positive about this than most people are.
Yeah, I'm probably pretty similar to yourself. Like, once we are seeing some sort of progress, and I'd say, as you say, addressing some of the issues. So certainly bringing Paulie in the line has been a huge success. And then even, you know, seeing the likes of Craig Casey getting capped, Ryan Baird coming on, we're talking about him. I know he hasn't had huge amount of game time at this level at all, but still his impact has been so positive that there is a suggestion that he could start against England the next day. What we are seeing is we're trying to get a little bit more into it. We're trying to get a bit more width on the ball from the sound bites coming out from the guys, which I know we can't pay too much attention to media at all, but I do think there's a sense of, I suppose, satisfaction from within the squad about what they're getting. And I think, again, Johnny, when after the Scottish game, he said he's really enjoying his rugby. He wants to go training every day. That is that is a man that is happy with his coaching ticket. Okay, you could say if you're being selected, you're always going to be a certain amount happy, but he's also the captain, so he's looking at the whole total squad and where he sees the squad going. That's a positive thing. If your main player is coming up 38 years of age, and who could be known to be a bit is cantankerous too strong a word? No,
it's perfect.
That he can turn around and say, I want to go training every day, I'm enjoying every training every day, that he name checks the management, that, you know, they're pretty happy with everything that's going on, the direction that they're going. It's not going to happen with a click of their fingers. What I would like to see, and sorry, another positive is bringing in the likes of finding Hugo Keenan, who I think has very much solidified that full back role. I know we've spoken about him before. So it's not like we're talking about just sticking with the same easy. You know, they've blooded in a few new players. What I would like to see is, you know, we're obviously doing quite well in the breakdown. We're getting a few turnovers. I'd just like to see some sort of a switch where we really attack, as opposed to, okay, we've turned over the ball, I will try, you know, an up and under, or we'll try go 2 or 3 phases, and it's pretty predictable. We'll try and beat them up, or else we'll kick the ball back. I'd like to see, hang on here for a split second. If everyone switches on, we can counter here, we can go from here. Or again, you know, it's such a kicking game in the Northern Hemisphere, those loose kicks, can we try and create a little bit more than, you know, our back three, maybe one pass run, pass kick, or just a carry straight into contact. I just think a little bit of that kind of broken unstructured play, if we could, you know, even score once or twice off that, it could really get the guys' confidence up, and it could really open up the game a little bit for us. So from an attack point of view, we're always going to have, you know, your structure when there's a full defensive line in front of you, because we're talking about international rugby here. Defences are generally good, but it's when you get those slide opportunities, just a rip ball and then tackle, when they do not have a full defensive line. I'd like to see a little bit more of a spark of, oh lads, we're on, let's go, let's actually be really ambitious here. Let's maybe try even that 60-40 offload, particularly if we're coming off the back of a knock on from them and we're going to be going back for the scrum. But let's not just kick the ball away.
We do have a tendency, when it's penalty advantage, to try slightly, you know, it would have to be an outrageous piece of skill for this to come off with a kick. And it's like, why don't we just keep building those penalties in the hope that actually we end up picking up a card? I don't know, maybe it's a strategic decision that actually we're going to go quick with the kick, and if that doesn't work, we'll come back. And because we believe in our set piece so much, that we believe that kicking to the corner is going to give us that line out maul. But it just feels like the French and the English in particular are much better at scoring tries off penalty advantage than we are at the moment. I did want to talk about Joey Carberry, because you know, anybody who loves Irish rugby must have been unbelievably excited with the try that he created last weekend, and it's very far off Broadway. And I appreciate the fact that these are 2 Pro 14 teams who are shorn of whatever relevant internationals they are, but at the same time we've seen them do it before for Ireland in an international match, so it was pretty exciting. And like, if you're the Ireland head coach and you've been looking at the paucity of options you have at out half when Sexton is injured or has to go off or miss a game, it's like, well, welcome back to the party, Joey, because we need you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hugely exciting as an Irish rugby fan and as a Munster rugby fan as well. And it is, like, Joey always has had a brilliant rugby game or running game. So to be able to spot that opportunity and just slide through that gap was phenomenal. It was brilliant to see. And I think, you know, whenever anyone's out with a long-term injury, as a fan, you're just delighted for them to have, you know, a piece of individual skill like that you think they're going home smiling. Look, we're not going to see him this weekend, but I think what's going to be Joey's kind of biggest spotlight now will be the Pro 14 final the following week. Whether I'm not sure where where he isn't Owen Van Grand's plan. Is he going to start? Certainly, I imagine if he's not starting, he's going to be on the bench. And whether, it's JJ, I know JJ's been playing a bit of 12 as well when Joey started the last day, or we've Ben Healy around there as well. But I think that's going to be his biggest platform now to progress on and to catch Andy Farrell's eye. But I think it's more, again, looking further down the line, and hopefully we'll have some internationals that he can get back into that international system. But yeah, we're all a bit like, phew. But again, a bit like, you look at the French there, and Intimac is back, but he can't even get on the field because Jalabert is absolutely carving it up. So I guess we have built depth in other areas, but that kind of the 10, I suppose specifically, it's where we have a lot of players there, but we don't even know exactly who our clear number 2 is. I mean, coming out of the Six Nations wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be Billy Burns going into the next block of games. I mean,
but it's Joey Carberry. That's the thing. It's just if he could just get fit and stay fit for 6 months, then we'll all be like, that's it. Like, because I think it's clear.
Bit of robustness.
Yeah, and look, everybody had their chance. You can't say Billy Burns didn't have his chance, or that Ross Byrne didn't have their chance. They've had their chance, and we know what they can do, and it's grand. But Joey Carberry is potentially world class and is at this point the natural successor. Look, everybody knows that we've been banging on about Joey Carberry's brilliance in this show for a long time over the last number of years, so I'm very excited about that. And look, here's the thing: we stand on the precipice of an incredible month of rugby if Ireland can beat England this week. The excitement that there will be around that Leinster-Munster clash if Ireland beat England is absolutely massive. And if they don't, there'll just be this little sense of, what are we actually fighting for here? It's just a Pro 14 title. I know it's a big thing, but it could really take the wind out of the sails for the rest of the year.
Yeah, Candor. I guess, look, we want to look beyond this weekend because England as well are coming off, Eddie Jones is still under pressure. All right, they ground out a win against France the weekend, but they're coming under huge pressure. On the face of it, they're obviously going to be the favourites going off the back of the last few performances we've had against them, although things were more I suppose positive from November. But I actually think, like, somewhat, if we could start the Six Nations again, we were so close to beating Wales, having played with down a man for 60 minutes. France were a different animal, and I think there was certainly a lack of confidence there at that stage, and we have been starting to build. And Ireland, England coming out of Paddy's weekend, it's going to be huge. And the fact that it could be CJ's last game in an Irish jersey, like, there's a lot of grit in these guys. There's a lot of cojones in them. So I wouldn't be surprised if they can turn it around. But again, we're talking about us overpowering England, okay, and how we're going to get balled. But can we stop the English power game? And certainly where they got us as well in the last few games is those little dinks in behind. We were bludgeoned by George Ford and Elliot Daly and Johnny May in the last few games. So we need to make sure that we're very much covering our backfield. But again, they're off the back of such serious power and dominance in the front line that they've such go forward ball that we've no line speed. That's when you're going to be putting in those lovely little things behind. I think another thing we have to be careful of is for a period of that second half against Scotland, particularly our set piece defence, we just didn't come up off the line, and we really gave the Scottish a lot of go forward, a lot of momentum, one of which ended up in Hugh Jones' try. Against England, we can't do that because we all remember back to August before the World Cup in Japan when they were just scoring for fun at first phase off set piece. So we know they can do that as well. We need to make sure we come up off the line and we stick on our tackles and stick in our man.
Louise, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us on your day off as well. You're very good for getting out of bed first on St. Patrick's Day.
No problem.
Thanks a million.
Cheers, guys.
Louise Galvin giving us her thoughts there. And Deborah on YouTube says, Happy St. Patrick's Day from Sao Paulo. I think it's very early in the morning in Sao Paulo. Am I right?
Oh, they had a good 16th of March in Sao Paulo last night.
Yeah. So
they're still going.
They're still up. I wonder, are the St. Patrick's Day celebrations big in Sao Paulo? I was in Buenos Aires one St. Patrick's Day and it was absolutely massive. The streets were closed. Right. There were giant parties. It was like a proper festival. I was completely blown away. I had no idea that they celebrated it at all, but it was like, 150,000 people on the streets drinking late into the night. And ultimately we got tear gassed by the cops to break things up. But nice community policing effort from the Buenos Aires police. But I wonder, what's it like in Sao Paulo? Have you ever been away for St. Patrick's Day?
Have I think I have. No, I don't remember actually seeing like festivities happening abroad. But sorry, go back to Buenos Aires here. Are you like giving it the big one, saying, "My name is Gerard, I'm Irish. Listen to my accent," sort of thing when you're there, saying, "This is my day"?
No. I mean, in retrospect, I should have, absolutely. It's a long time ago. I was, about 4 stone lighter, so there was an opportunity there, of course. But like, I don't think you need. No.
And what was a part of a bigger trip? Was it one-off trip to Argentina?
10 days in Argentina.
Okay.
It was a short enough stay. It's a long old way to go for 10 days, it turns out. You should really go for a couple of months if you're going and do the travel around thing. One of those regrets, Owen, that I would recommend people to do and not have done myself.
Yeah. But
certainly spending St. Patrick's Day in other places is cool, because you're like, oh, I didn't realise that this was a big thing over here, or that there's some kind of connection. There's I'm going to butcher this now, but there's some GAA club in Buenos Aires that has like a really cool backstory. I think the All-Stars went out there for a trip as well, because there was some proper Irish connection, which seems a bit random, but I'd say it was a good old trip to be on.
Yeah, I vaguely recall that one, and I think I know the GA club we were talking about. I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to take us up on that immediately. But like, it is like, did I see somewhere this week that like maybe when you go to maybe certain cities in the United States, there is not a great St. Patrick's Day experience, to put it that way. Whereas if you go to further flung places around the world, there is a less twee version of their view of Irishness. There
was nothing twee about this. It was a street party. Everybody was having the crack. Like, there was none of those ancient order of Hibernian assholes, deciding who can and can't march in their parade. There was none of that stuff going on. It was just, it was crack. It was kind of what you would expect if we threw a party. It would be like, with no organisers. Good. Except organised by Latin Americans, and so therefore kind of cooler and better looking. 087, go on.
The San Isidro Gaelico is the GEA firm of Buenos Aires, founded by a Corkman, I think in 1922, the hurling club at least.
Oh yeah, the hurling club, that's it. What's it called again?
There's a San Isidro Gaelico, according to a GEA.ie feature, which I've just looked at here. I'm not sure if it's the same one. It's situated north of Buenos Aires, and it's a little town called San Isidro, obviously. I'm not sure if this is the same one that was founded by a Corkman. I'm scrolling to find answers. Again, I'm sure somebody's been there. Somebody's actually seen what San Isidro do and who their best corner forwards are.
Well, greetings to our friends in Brazil this morning, and indeed to anywhere else around the world. If anybody wants a shout out, we're happy to say hello to you. 087 918 180 is the number. 23 minutes past 8 this morning. It's March the 17th. It is St. Patrick's Day, and just in case you forgot, we've got a packed show still to come on OTB AM. Champions League with Dermot Corrigan a little bit later on, and the Tight 5 with Neil Treacy as well. We're back with the sports pages after these.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18 plus.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Sean, what's that thing going round the garden?
That is our new Husqvarna Automower.
Automower?
Yeah, it's a robotic lawnmower from Husqvarna. Cuts the grass automatically, has GPS tracking and an app. Even works in the rain. I just thought, why spend time cutting grass when I could spend it with the family?
Great! You can put the dinner on, so...
No can do, love. Have to paint the man cave.
Husqvarna Automower. Never mow again. Learn more at husqvarna.ie.
Off the ball.
And he also said to ask him about the Hummer golf buggy I saw him driving in Portugal.
Yeah, well, the Hummer golf buggy, it wasn't mine, it was a friend of mine's. And I rented his place, and that was his buggy to get about. So, yeah, it was interesting. I was trying to keep my head down at times, but it was a little bit, yeah. Not sure what Roy Keane would have made of it.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1.
This is OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
So, since 2014, CJ Standard, Jared Payne and Bundy Aki have earned 100 Irish rugby caps between them. We've put a poll out this morning on Twitter asking who is the best project player in Irish rugby history. Jared Payne, CJ Standard, Bundy Aki or an other. And CJ is streaking home at the moment. As you would expect, you know, if we say Bundy comes into the team and scores a hat-trick at the weekend, what happens? Do things change then? You're a fickle lot. You're a fickle lot, you sports people. Yeah.
Yes, they do. A hat-trick against England would obviously change it, and I'm not putting that down to fickleness. I'm putting that down to actually seeing what's in front of you.
Here is what is on the sports pages today. Rachel Blackmore speaks off the ball last night about making history. Cheltenham Festival, the racing tips from Tom and JD are up. I'm speechless. Rachel Blackmore on the champion hurdle win. That was last night on Off the Ball. Loads of Cheltenham coverage all week, and it's all, as we've been saying, it's on the front pages. That's honeysuckle over the last, streaking for victory against the empty backdrop of like one of sport's great cathedrals, and it is a real pity that it is empty. There's Rachel Blackmore on the back pages of the Irish Independent. Sexton called on Ireland to send Sander off in style, and Vicky Wall also was out doing media again yesterday, very heartened by the experience of telling her story about the abuse that she suffered from opposition managers when she was playing. Can you put yourself in those shoes? Just imagine what it must be like. The back page of the Herald, Rachel makes racing history, and Sexton wants to end on a high note for CJ. The Irish Times leads this morning with Gordon Darcy's column. England could be a deserving farewell for Stander. And obviously they got match reports last night. Ilkay Gundogan, who's been in fine goal scoring form. It struck me last night when Real Madrid were, kind of quite boring and not great just at the moment, but actually rounding into form nicely in March and April, as they do when they're not great and things aren't going great for them in the league, and then just winning the Champions League, because that's how the Champions League works. What a disaster that would be for Pep this season if that ultimately was what was to happen. I've got the Examiner, I've got the page 7 of the Examiner for tab of the morning to you. It's Blue Danube. Pep Joy is city waltz in Budapest. Do you know what Blue Danube? Do you know that reference? Did it make it?
If you'd given me just a 20 seconds of an intro to that, I would have been able to Google Andre Rieu, the beautiful Blue Danube, in enough time, but instead I had to filibuster by laughing.
You didn't know?
Come on, give me a break. I'm not familiar with the works of Andre Rieu too much.
It's not Andre Rieu. It way predates him.
It's Strauss.
That'd be like, say, somebody did a cover version of Molly Malone, and you'd be like, I know. Oh yeah, Damien Dempsey's Molly Malone. Yeah, I know what that is.
What is it? So is it Handel? Is it Mozart? Is it Strauss? Who is the beautiful Blue Danube?
It's just a song that
you don't even know the original composer.
You would instantly recognise the hum it for me there.
This guy throwing patronising culture grenades.
Stick on Andrew Rieu. Stick him on there. Go on and unmute your YouTube. I mean, if that's safe to do. It's 8:29 in the morning on. I don't know what your browsers are like.
No, it's absolutely not safe to unmute it at this time in the morning or any time of the day, to be honest with you. But you're throwing grenades at me. You can't even name the original composer. The Blue Danube was
Schubert.
Composed by. I'm actually going to need a moment here. Oh yeah, Johann Strauss II.
Strauss, whatever. Strauss, Schubert, they're all the same to me. First lady in the front page of the Examiner this morning, and that's the headline there. Kind of what you would expect. And then obviously CJ Stander. It's interesting that the Examiner went with Rachel Blackmore over CJ Standard. Obviously, she is a Munster woman as well. Doing it for CJ, That's the back page headline in the Daily Mail. Ireland aim to give Stander a fitting send-off, and Rachel's win is sweet as honey. Also, King Kevin's stunner Spark City as Pep's men stroll into the quarters. Am I wrong to think that it's going to be Real Madrid winning this? I don't know.
Yeah, well, like, I mean, it would be a fairly similar situation to what Liverpool would experience if they were to want to win it, wouldn't it? Like, just a massive injury crisis, and all of a sudden the second half of the season looks like a brand new season after a couple of wins here and there. You wouldn't be surprised to see either of them go all the way. The
real top of the morning is Kate Mila Pfizer. That's the front of the Star, and they also go with the First Lady. And back page of the Mirror doesn't have Rachel Blackmore in it. They've got Queen Bee on their Cheltenham pull-out, and let's do it right for CJ, as well as Roman goes in hard. He wants Erling Haaland this summer, and he's willing to pay whatever it takes because he wants his man. Right, it's bang on 8:30 this morning. OTB AM is live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Neil Treacy is with us. Neil, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, so we've got a tight five for you. The Ireland turnover attack, our line-out discipline, scrum technique, CJ Stander retires, and Italy's future in the Six Nations. We haven't been good at getting through the 5 points of the tight five. Do you think we're going to be able to do it today?
Well, I think we're already a little bit behind schedule, so I think we're going to be up against it.
We've got 19 minutes, I'm being told.
Oh, 19. Well, maybe. Look, I can easily talk for 19 minutes on scrum and line out alone. You know, we'll see. Do we get to them? We'll try our best this time round. If you need me to stop talking about anything,
should we flip the order? Flip the order and do all the stuff that you're like mad into at the end, so that way you'll be incentivized to get there and start with Italy and CJ. Should we do that?
No, because I actually put a lot of work into these ones, and I want to make sure I actually get them done.
Go on. We're going to start with our turnover attack. Let's go.
Yeah, so this was probably off the back of Niamh Briggs was on with the lads on Monday Night Rugby talking, and you know, one of the key points she made was that for the amount that Ireland turn over the ball, whether it's just kind of at ruck time on the ground or at lineouts as well, that they don't seem to actually use the turnover ball to really have a good counter attack at teams. So I thought that was a really interesting point, and I decided I'd have a little browse through the lineouts in particular from Sunday against Scotland, when they turned over 6 Scottish lineouts, and what sort of things were they trying to do. Now, for the most part, Niamh was absolutely bang on with what Ireland were trying to do, so that pretty much on all of the lineouts that they did steal from Scotland, it was a case of they got the ball, they ended up taking a couple of short carries with forwards that were relatively close to the lineout itself before maybe they might have gone wide after that, or if they were a little bit further back the pitch, they would have put through a box kick, or they would put in a box kick or a Gary Eoin or something like that, a contestable kick to try and basically win territory. So I've picked out a couple examples of this where, in fairness, it actually did work to an extent, that practice of using the turnovers to try and gain even more territory with a good kicking game. Because what it was doing was, normally when Ireland are struggling with the box kicks and struggling to win those back, it is because they're doing it at a very slow pace around a ruck or a maul, where people have time to get set and the opposition have time to put blockers into place. Whereas on a couple of these occasions, as I'll show you here, what they were able to do was put the ball into areas where there weren't too much Scottish cover. So it was allowing the opportunity for Robbie Henshaw on one of these and Keith Earls on another to get up very, very quick and put the opposition under pressure and contest that aerial ball. So we have a few screen grabs here. We'll just put the first one up. This is the first line I'm going to show you on 6 minutes. It's a great steal by James Ryan, who was pretty much man-marking Johnny Gray for the day. You could see it when they were coming into the lineouts. He was essentially facing the Scottish lineout. Wherever Johnny Gray was going, he was going. And I think Ryan deserves a lot of credit, actually, on Sunday for the way he man-marked him and timed his jumps. So hopefully the first screen grab we're looking at here, it is Johnny Gray and James Ryan up, both of them contesting for the ball. Is that what we're seeing?
We moved on from that one to Sexton, yeah.
Okay, so we're on, Johnny Sexton has the ball here. He's circled in the red. Robbie Henshaw is circled in the yellow. So this is basically what has happened. There have been a couple of short little carries just outside where Ireland had stolen that line out. Ball goes out to Johnny Sexton, and he's launching basically a Gary Eoin right up into the 22. But what you can see is if you look across that Scottish defence, there aren't too many numbers across there. Like, they're well spaced out in terms of a defence, but there isn't much. Yeah, there isn't much traffic in the way for Robbie Henshaw to attack. So now we'll move on to the next clip. This is as the ball is probably mid-air. And now we can see Robbie Henshaw circled in the yellow.
Yeah.
and Stuart Hogg circled on the left of your picture and the right. And that is, look at the amount of space that Robbie Henshaw has to attack Stuart Hogg there. There is no traffic for him to navigate. There are no, kind of lazy Scottish runners just trying to get in the way of Robbie Henshaw without making it too obvious. Ultimately, what that leads to is Robbie Henshaw gets up in the air, contests with Stuart Hogg, knocks the ball back, and Ireland win the ball and ultimately win a penalty that they go on to. That ultimately, I think, leads to the opening try of the game. So that's probably it's not attractive to watch, but as we can see, sometimes it is effective if you're able to put the kick into space and put in a good kick where players have a huge opportunity and space to run into without loads of traffic. We're going to look at another example here now if we move on to our next picture. So what we should see, this will be just after a line-out has been won. Johnny Sexton, or Jamison Gibson Park, I should say, is circled in the red.
Yeah.
And Keith Earls is circled at the top of your screen in the yellow. So we've skipped the line-out here because it was just as simple. It was a knock-on by the... excuse me, I keep coughing. It was knocked on by or an overthrow, I should say, by George Turner. CJ Stander collected at the back, and Jamison Gibson Park went for a box kick. Look, they're much deeper in their own half, so it's probably it is a safer option, probably is a more sensible option this time round. But as we can move on to our next picture here, we can see because they've been able to set up that kick so quickly, again, you can see it's Keith Earls circled on the circle in yellow, and I believe it's Duan van der Merwe circled in the red on the left of your picture. And again, there's very, very little traffic for Keith Earls to have to run through here and contest this kick. And he does so. He manages to get up on van der Merwe on time. He tackles and brings him to ground, actually drives him back a couple of yards. Tygburn gets in over the top of it. It's a penalty to Ireland. Johnny Sexton kicks it, and it's 3 points for Ireland. So that's a couple of examples where it actually worked quite well. There were another couple of examples throughout the match where it came close to working, or Ireland won a bit of scrappy ball off it. But these were the two most kind of clear and obvious examples of why it worked. I will just use an example of the one time Scotland actually turned over an Irish line-out, and what most other teams would try and do, and trying to get the ball a little bit wider. So we can see here what we should be seeing on our screen is a line-out. Scott Cummings and James Ryan are both going up for it. Unfortunately, it looks like it was probably just a poor throw from Herring. It was a little bit over on the Scottish side. You can kind of see that James Ryan is leaning over to try and catch it. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah.
So that's just neat. I'm just showing you there where the lineup was lost. But as we can see then on the next picture, Sean Maitland circled in the yellow at the bottom of the screen. He was the one that ended up kind of catching the ball off the back of it. And straight away, he flung it out towards the centre of the pitch, towards Hamish Watson in the red, who made a short little carry. Scotland got the ball out onto the far touchline afterward and actually worked their way up towards the Irish 22 as a result. So it's probably, I'm just trying to show you the two examples of how teams are approaching it, and why Ireland's example is not exactly pretty on the eye, but sometimes it actually does lead to good results.
There's a weird psychosis in Irish rugby and people who write about it that kicking is always bad. Every box kick is bad because sometimes it hasn't worked out, and we've watched too much of it and we're bored of it now, and we all want to watch a team who plays like the Crusaders. Why can't we be the Crusaders? Is to me what the undercurrent is he's box kick, get him off. It's well, I mean, isn't our culture kicking? Didn't we invent the Gary Owen? And also, doesn't all the field sports we play involve kicking and catching? Shouldn't we be the world's best kickers? Wouldn't that be a good thing for us to go, we're going to be the best kicking team in the world, and we'll also run when we need to, but when we kick, it's going to be bloody effective.
Yeah, and I think, in fairness to Jamison Gibson Park as well, he's not actually getting enough credit whatsoever for the quality of his box kicks, because they have actually, by and large, been really, really good. I think it is just one of those tactics that probably when box kicks were around maybe in the 90s and early to mid 2000s, it was very much a case of you were just kind of popping a little box kick over the top when there weren't other options on. You weren't sending up this huge contestable into the air for other people to chase on. It was just a little chip over the top of the ruck. Whereas now, territory has just become such a huge part of the game that even if you don't necessarily have the ball, if you're pinning the opposition back down towards their 22, you have a good chance of winning a penalty off the back of it. You have a good chance of forcing them into a mistake. It's just the way the game has changed, I think, over the last 10 years. And unfortunately, it's just not a very attractive thing to watch. but sometimes when it's done well, it can be very, very effective.
There's the psychic trauma, of course, of us having box kicked away our chance of winning a quarter-final in 1991, which still, I think, is the ghost that haunts Irish rugby. But, let's move on past the quarter-finals for today. Line-out discipline is next?
Yeah, so this was something I brought up on last week's edition, and it was, do you remember we were talking about the obstruction penalties that Ireland given away against Italy on a couple of occasions?
Yes, you called this in advance. You snitched at Ireland, and the referees were watching, and they were like, hang on, I saw Neil Treacy do exactly this. That's a penalty, Ireland. You can't do it.
Well, no, unfortunately, Roman Pratt probably didn't even have to be watching the tied 5 last week. Like, he was the TMO for the game between Ireland and Italy 2 weeks ago. He was referee on Saturday against Scotland. So he would have seen Ireland give away these 2 penalties. And I tried to look throughout the Italy and the Scotland game for examples of when Ireland did this and got away with it. And to be totally honest, I actually couldn't find any. Anytime they set up decent mauls and didn't concede a penalty off the back of it, it was because they were doing it the correct way. They weren't obstructing anyone. So I really don't see why they are still persisting with this when pretty much every single time over these last few games that they have tried it, that they have been penalised for it. So the first picture we're going to look at again, it is Tadhg Byrne lifting James Ryan in the line-out. If we move on to the second one, we can see just as they're coming to ground, Tadhg Byrne is beginning to step across James Ryan and kind of just act as a little blocker between Ryan and the Scottish pack. And then if we move on to the third picture, we can see that Tadhg Byrne, he's actually completely overshadowed and he has almost gone to the opposite side of James Ryan completely. It's quite blatant. It's very, very easy to spot for the referee, and that's 3 occasions now when Ireland have given away penalties off the back of this. They were lucky on this occasion. Finn Russell took a shot at goal and he missed it off to the right. Against Italy, they tried it twice in the Italian 22 and were penalised on both occasions for it when a try really should have been on the cards. So it could have been much more costly for Ireland over these last couple of games. Referees are very much onto it. Obstruction, something that they're trying to clamp down on. I just don't see the point of why Ireland are trying to do this anymore. Yeah, Ireland, look, England will kick that to the corner and they'll win the line out and they'll roll their maul and we'll be down 7 points essentially. And it's like, it seems needless, but you've pointed it out twice now and no doubt they're watching. So what's your message to Paul O'Connell there, Neil? I'd like... When Ireland have set up mauls properly over the course of those couple of games, particularly, I was going to bring up, I just didn't have the space and time. I think today, like, remember Jamieson Gibson Park getting held up for that try in the first half on Sunday? Like, that came off the back of a really, really well set up Irish maul, and there was a great example of James Ryan absolutely taking out one of the Scottish players who was trying to come in at the side. It was just good maul play, good protection of the ball. They managed to work it into an area where the maul was turning towards the try line in a nice way, and it took a really, really good tackle from Jamie Ritchie and maybe a bit of lying over the ball for Hamish Watson to get on top of it and win the penalty. But, that's an example of a good maul. Ireland are very, very good at doing it. Their line-out itself has improved dramatically. They're winning their ball much more comfortably. Stick to the basic stuff. Okay. Next is scrum technique. Yeah, this is just going to be a short little one. It was just to look back on, do you remember we were talking about the Ireland bind at the scrum with their second rows? This is just an example of, they didn't actually use it too much on Sunday. This was only the one time I could clearly see it happening. And they actually ended up giving away a penalty on this scrum. But I just wanted to point it out again, just to kind of emphasise what it is they're doing. So we look at our first picture here. The yellow circle on the left is basically just the gap where Ian Henderson's bind should normally be on James Ryan. As you can see, he has it tucked in under his hooker instead. And what he's losing there is that he's not necessarily bound to James Ryan, so he's not getting tight onto his second row. But why they're making up for that is if you look at CJ Stander at the back or whoever is going to be playing number 8, he's bound in under the legs of those 2 second rows. So even though the second rows aren't bound to each other, CJ Stander is binding them together and holding them in closer together as well. So it's the trade-off. If we move on to the second picture, we can see where the penalty is given away. Cian Healy just gets popped up into the air, loses his bind, and it was a Scottish penalty. They didn't try it again from what I could see after it. I'll be curious to see to know if they deliberately decided to change that up during the game because it didn't really work. But overall, the Irish scrum has been good. It was a good battle at the scrum, I thought, on Sunday. both sides won a penalty or two off each other, and the rest were pretty even and in and out, and it wasn't too messy.
It was kind of break even, wasn't it? And some of the penalties that we won, they could have actually been given them, and there were other penalties that weren't given on both sides, where they just decided, let's let the ball be put out. And it seems that's happening a bit more, that there'll be some penalties in the scrum, but it doesn't feel like referees are going to allow one team to beat the other at the moment by sheer dominance in the scrum.
Yeah, and I think a lot of referees now as well is if the ball is there and it's easily played off the back, and there's maybe a slip in the front row and it collapses, I think the referees are happy enough to play on. It's probably only when there is a blatant bit of foul play or a blatant penalty being conceded that they're actually going to step in. Like the example I showed there, I wasn't really highlighting Cian Healy making a mistake or anything. Sometimes everyone at some stage has a scrum where you go backwards or you get popped up in the air. Like overall, the Irish scrum has been pretty good this year, but I just wanted to kind of highlight the binding situation. As I said last time around as well, officially it's against the rules, but I think we're kind of moving to a stage where Ireland are doing it more so for stability rather than anything else. And I think when you look at how the scrum has changed over the decades and how a lot of the laws regarding kind of like binds and where people are setting up are still the same, I would be curious to see if World Rugby kind of brought together a lot of the world's top scrum coaches and head coaches to see, are there changes that should be made to the way teams are supposed to be setting up in the scrum that would actually make it a little bit more stable, that we'd see less resets, because that's something that you really hate having to watch in the final 10 minutes of games. Okay, let's move on. CJ Stander's retirement. A couple of comments for you. CJ's a great player, but if we're being honest, Ireland needs an offloading number 8, says MOC. That was his biggest weakness. He never offloaded, ever. In Bodwy Trust 13 says, huge game for Ireland, finally getting rid of a player who can't even pass a ball 5 yards. All the talk of playing expansive rugby is undermined by picking players like him. Both of you are shifting uneasily there in your seats, rolling. I can see and hear the rolling of eyes 3 doors over.
But at least he's named himself after Brian O'Driscoll rather than some sort of very primitive ball carrying player. So he's consistent in Bodwy Trust 13. He likes Brian O'Driscoll and he likes offloading. What is CJ Stander's legacy?
He threw 2 offloads on Sunday against Scotland.
Let's reframe the conversation. What is CJ Stander's legacy, Neil?
It's a massive legacy. Like, I think a lot of people are quick to forget how difficult it actually was for him when he first joined Munster, because he started out, his first start against Glasgow was sensational. I honestly can't remember a Munster debutant who made such an impact in their opening game in Thomond Park. But for the guts of 12 or 18 months, he actually really struggled to get a place in that Munster team. And it was a source of enormous frustration for Munster fans. I can remember it so well. Every single week when there was a team named, people were wondering, why isn't CJ Stander there? Why isn't CJ Stander among the subs even? And they were looking at the players that were included, and they could not figure out why CJ Stander wasn't included. So he had a pretty difficult time when he first came to Ireland, and he had to really, really work up his place in the team before even, passing those few years and getting into the Irish setup as well. I don't think you could find anyone in Munster or in Limerick, I think specifically, who'd have a bad word to say about him, because anyone who's crossed paths with him only has nice things to say. And, when people talk about, why should a project player be taking the place of an Irish-born player in the Irish squad? And one of the arguments that's always thrown back is, look, it's all the Munster fans and all the Limerick people who are quick to stand up for him. But well, that's because they've crossed paths with him on a personal level, and they've been able to see the kind of person he is. So I think he leaves an absolutely massive legacy. As you were running that poll there, probably, I would say, probably the best foreign import into Ireland for any of the Irish provinces. Certainly Munster's best.
Yeah, I think Leinster fans would definitely say that the impact that Eason Asewa had, and also the impact that Rocky Elton had going back, Brad Thorne too, they all won European Cups, so that kind of has had an immediate, clear knock-on delivery of silverware for a team that was pretty close to it. But CJ has been a cultural, he's helped to rescue the culture in many ways from a team that was kind of really struggling for its identity in the aftermath of its great team into a team that has been very close to achieving great stuff in the semi-finals of European Cups. Like we forget that being in the semi-final of a European Cup, as often as Munster have been, is the sign of a really strong, well-run, organised, like again, a powerful culture in the province to produce a team that can go across Europe and do it. And Louise Galvin brought up the point earlier on, you know, would we have been better for the long term if we'd had Rhys Ruddock have those 50 caps, or if we'd had, you know, somebody else, Jack Conan or whoever, win those caps, or, you know, maybe Coombs would be further down the line if there wasn't somebody ahead of him like CJ. And I understand why people will make that argument. She wasn't making the argument, by the way. She was just saying that there are people out there making that argument. I don't want to misquote her. But the thing is that, like, the legacy doesn't just have to be that you then go on into coaching or that you're there all the time. It's that you were there establishing the culture on a daily basis. And that continues on. That's the whole point about this. It's supposed to be a continuum. So I think his legacy will survive him leaving.
Yeah, 100%. Like, as a player, CJ Stander put bums on seats in Thomond Park on a regular basis when other players probably weren't doing so. Maybe around 2014, 15 and 16. He put bums on seats in the Aviva Stadium, I would say, as well. He's the reason probably why that there are a lot more kids maybe playing rugby around the country, because he's one of those players people looked up to. He was an all-action kind of a player, and he had such a good reputation off the pitch as well. So, like, I as you were saying as well, like, I see why people might say, oh, well, look, if we hadn't brought in this project player, this, you know, Irish-born players would have been given a better chance. They would have earned more caps. I just don't agree with it. I do understand the logic of it, but I think when you actually look at when you take CJ Stander as an example of a player, I can't agree with it.
Yeah, and look, it's possible to have conflicting thoughts around the whole issue of project players and whether or not we're doing it the right way, and also at the same time have nothing but love for what CJ Stander has done. So, Neil, we leave it there. Good stuff. 4 out of 5, not bad. Neil's Type 5 will be back next week when we promise to get to it. If you want, we can, if you want any questions for Neil, we can talk about them, no problems. 0879 180 180 is the number. Let me tell you about what's coming up on OTB Sports Radio. Just tell your Alexa to play OTB Sports Radio, and it's as easy as that. Alexa, play OTB Sports Radio. And at 10:30 this morning, it's the Cheltenham show. We'll be live with Paddy Power. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham. From 10:30 to 11:30. OTB Gold is our Irish football special at 1 o'clock. Mount Rushmore today, we're revisiting Galway. Our retro panel is Sport and Irish Identity at 4 o'clock. At 6, it is Colm Gooch Cooper, that's OTB Gold, and then OTB Tonight from 7. Plenty getting on for it as well.
Bossman on YouTube has been in touch to say, bring back Mick Galway, a real Irish player, even has a county in his name.
John Kerry for the second row, he was tall, wasn't he? There's not much after that. I've got nothing. Was there a Johnny Kildare? I don't know.
There was a Tyrone in Coronation Street.
There was, yeah. A little small guy, so stick him in the front row, right?
Yeah, get Tyrone Mings over as a project player, and Dion Dublin can change code as well.
Yeah, they'd both be good. One big lanky lad on the wing to smash people, John Lomu style, and the other one he can go on the back row. Might be able to take on the English back row. That'd be all right. Yeah, that's where we're developing a good old team here. Bearded Alan Cork from Wimbledon back in the day. Bit old now, probably.
I was going to go for Jack Cork. Probably in better shape at the moment. But
I'm kind of done.
I'm completely out now.
0879 180 180 is the number if anybody wants to get in touch and rescue us from that little diversion this morning. What are your plans for the rest of St. Patrick's Day, Eoin? Are you going
no plans to
march your traditional route?
I don't have a traditional route, unfortunately. I don't know what I'll do. Like, what do people do in lockdown St. Patrick's Day? What did people do last year? I can't even remember what St. Patrick's Day involved last year, to be honest.
Yeah, I think I don't remember it at all either. Right, it is 8:54 this morning. I'm delighted to say that March is Quit Month, so every week this month on Off the Ball we're going to be joined by Fergus McNally as he attempts to quit smoking with the HSE Quit team. The HSE Quit service provides personalised free support by phone, email, SMS and live chat. If you're a smoker, you can call free 1800 201 203. Visit quit.ie for stop smoking tips and resources. If you quit smoking for 28 days, you're 5 times more likely to quit for good. Fergus, good morning to you. How are you?
Good morning, how are you?
Happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
And to you.
Not having St. Patrick's Day of socialising, I presume, is a slightly good thing for you in the midst of giving up smoking.
Yeah, well, the fact that there's no pubs is a good thing for me. Full stop at the moment, just while you get over the initial hurdles. But yeah, it's an odd day, isn't it? It should be an exciting day, but I don't know what people are going to do today.
How's it going for you? Are you still off?
Still off, yeah. Still flying. So there's been no real hiccups. And I think a lot of that is down to the lockdownness of it. If I was in a pub, somebody could have a cigarette beside me and I might say give us one of them, and that'd be the slippery slope, But because that hasn't happened, it takes more of an effort to go and smoke, so. It's
a good time of year to be doing it as well, because the stretch in the evenings means you can actually get out and go for a walk and do a bit of exercise. And the whole point of this, obviously, people save money by not smoking, but the idea is to feel healthier and fresher. How's that aspect of this been for you? Are you noticing any signs just yet?
Yeah, 100%. And it's not just physical. I don't exercise much. I don't go for 10k jogs that I notice I can do much quicker, but I have noticed that just aerobically you feel better. You wake up better, feeling better. So, and your mental focus is better. If you imagine you're doing something on your computer and work and somebody distracts you, they reckon that it takes you 10 minutes to get back into it. But with cigarettes, you've got 10 minutes before you go for the cigarette, thinking about the cigarette. You've got the 10 minutes of the cigarette, and then until you come back. So you've got half an hour there that you're not focused as much. So you get to be more productive in whatever you're doing because you're not thinking about your next smoke or going for a smoke. So the benefits are just, there's loads of them, financially, mentally, physically, everything. It's so much better.
I hadn't really thought about the focus and that whole kind of, it's quite a subtle, insidious way that it gets into your life.
Yeah, well, you do kind of, the cravings of a cigarette is you're looking forward to it and you're wanting it, and when you're wanting something or craving something, you can't concentrate on something else. And yeah, it's just all around, it's just so much better for lifestyle.
Physically, tell us about the change, will you? Because the mental thing is very powerful. What about physically? Are you noticing anything different?
Yeah. When I wake up in the morning, I wake up fresher and better. You always have a cough first thing in the morning, and I don't know what that is. It's just maybe when you're lying down, mucus that builds up when you're in your throat, and then you have to clear that. Well, I don't know what that is, but that's cleared, and you just wake up better. And I'm not breaking any personal bests on 5Ks, but I am feeling better. I am feeling much better.
The thing is, I suppose, if you wanted to start going for walks, you could, and there would be no barrier. That's the bit that, and maybe over the course of the summer, you'll notice that, and actually, that's the bit where the dividend starts to become more pronounced. In terms of actually being able to do it this time, what's the difference? Why do you feel more confident this time? Why have you made it past your 28 days?
I think it is the fact that we're in lockdown. I think the fact that there is no real temptations to buy a cigarette. For me to have a cigarette means I'd have to go to the garage, leave my house and buy them, rather than bumming off a fella in the pub or at the side of a match or whatever, So that it's definitely the lockdown. And I'd encourage people who've maybe thought about it before and tried and failed before to give it a go now. And especially, as you said, January is a terrible month to give up anything, and people do it. Oh, it's January, I'm giving up this, I'm giving up that. It's terrible. You should wait until February, or as you say, in March. Beautiful day today. If you got up this morning and said, I'm going to do anything, change your life, you would, because of the weather and because of just so you can have a better outlook, And
are you more focused on it this time? I think you said that for whatever reasons, you feel more focused on it now.
Yeah, well, I'm 50 this year, so you get more aware of things the older you get. Some people I know have lost people to cancer, so you kind of feel to yourself, right, I'm gonna have complications with my health. Let's try and mitigate them. Let's try and do stuff to reduce those effects. So smoking is the obvious one. And that will lead on to other things, as you said. You start walking, you get fitter and all that. But definitely something I'd encourage to anybody who's thinking about it and has thought about it before to do it now.
Fergus, a lot of people, I think, maybe during lockdown have said, I'll treat myself in such a way because life is tough at the moment. In many ways, it's tougher for people to give things up or to change lifestyle habits within lockdown. Did you find that at all at any point?
Cigarettes were to me never a treat. A Tunnocks tea cakes to me is a treat, you know what I mean? But cigarettes is a habit, and it's something that you don't want to do, but you do anyway, you know? So there's still treats. Don't worry about that. I'm still treating myself. So,
fair point.
Yeah.
Just one other question I had then as well is, have you been drinking alcohol at home, or have you cut alcohol completely out considering the connection to cigarettes?
No, I don't particularly drink alcohol at home, but I have an occasion, and it hasn't really come up because of the people there hasn't been cigarettes in the environment I've been in. Like, I work in a pub, for example. I'll be in a pub all day today. We'll be selling takeaway pints, takeaway cocktails, takeaway food today. So I'll be in and around that all day, and it won't bother me. I won't have a cigarette. I might have a pint at the end of the day, but that'll be it, you know.
Back into Ireland camp soon as well. Any fears about nervousness? The game's on and 10 minutes left. We're winning 1-0. You know, any of that kind of stuff? Any concerns about any triggers around that?
No. Again, just too much effort when you're away to buy the cigarettes. They're not going to be there, you know what I mean? And to buy them when you're away is much harder to buy them when you're here, because you can't just nip out to the spar, you know. So no problems at all. I'm looking forward to it, actually. I'm looking forward to just doing that without cigarettes, and I'm looking forward to maybe going on a long drive without stopping for cigarettes. You know, just different milestones of doing something without cigarettes.
Yeah, and hassle all the players for a fag as well.
Yeah. One of the things is when I go away with the kids, so like we go to football trips and you'd be going to the airport, and that's where you'd say, right, I'll have a fag here. And the last time I went, I had like a 12-year-old with me, and he's standing there while I get my last fag in that garden bar, you know what I mean? On a Friday morning on our way to watch a match. And just the next time I go to an airport, it'll be cigarette free, and I'll be able to sit down and have a butler's without worrying about where my next fag is coming from, you know. So
yeah, there's nothing more disgusting than those little rooms in airports where it's the one designated smoking area, and it just stinks. You walk in and there's no air. It's nothing but like 48th hand smoke, and it's like, oh my God, why are we here?
There's a bin there smouldering, like the bin is actually on fire. Yeah,
that's and the ashes. I always felt like that's the ashes of my soul right there. That's like the exact picture of how my life has led to this point where I'm standing here beside this smouldering bin, desperately trying to breathe in this little piece of poison. It's like, why are we here?
That happened to me in my honeymoon in Bangkok. I was in one of them, and it was particularly nasty, and I just walked out of it and said, I'm not doing this anymore. So
this time it's for real, Fergus, and it seems to be going really well. So listen, best of luck, and obviously we wish you and the whole country wishes you all the best of luck over the next while as well with the Ireland team too. So thanks a million for joining us.
Cheers, thanks a lot. See you later.
That's Fergus McNally, the Republic of Ireland kit man, who is doing really well at the moment. He's passed his 28 days giving up smoking, which at this stage means that he is 5 times more likely to quit for good. So if you want any information or if you want any help, don't worry about it, because it's out there for you. The HSE Quit service provides personalised free support by phone, email, SMS and live chat. You can call free 1-800-201-203, or you can visit quit.ie for stop smoking tips and resources, and you know you can do it. You absolutely can. 3 minutes past 8 here this morning. It's March the 17th, St. Patrick's Day. If you've missed anything this morning, catch it on the OTB AM podcast. Hit subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. We timestamp everything so you can flick through it. Champions League next with Dermot Corrigan. But keep an ear out in the ad break here for John Duggan's Cheltenham tip of the day.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
Thursday night football with John Giles.
Johnny Giles is a national treasure. When he speaks, I'm like, yes, yes, yes. When he's on the show, I was in the car the other day, I parked the car and I sprinted into the house and turned on the radio. I love listening to him. I love Johnny Giles.
John Giles, every Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on OTB Sports Radio, live 24/7 on the OTB Sports app. The Saturday panel on OTB.
And I find myself during commentary, sometimes a thread will appear in my mind and it'll be like a worm. You know, it's there. I know this might happen and I've got to ready to go. And that would have been the nation holds its breath thing, because I couldn't have scripted that penalty in Genoa in 1990. And it just came to me in the moment. But it came to me because of all that I had done beforehand. And it was there ready to emerge at the right moment.
Don't miss the panel every Saturday afternoon on OTB Sports Radio. Tune in 24/7 on the OTB Sports app.
Well, yesterday we washed our face at Cheltenham. So the charity bets, 3 winners, Honeysuckle, Shishkin and Appreciated, all short prizes though. The NAP, next destination, second, that was frustrating. And then Cold Tour was 5th each way. So nothing gained, nothing lost. A wash of a face of a day. No problem at all with that. So we roll on to Wednesday now, €200 with Paddy Power given us for charity. And those tips will be up on the OTB website, otbsports.com, and on the OTB app within the next half an hour. You want to be hot off the presses to get those tips today. So what are we thinking about today when we're talking about a nap? Right. Well, in 2009, Dunguib, this horse trained by Philip Fenton, won at Cheltenham in the bumper. And they say sometimes in racing that a horse carries a double handful, so the jockey's absolutely motionless. In that race, Dunguib was having a quadruple handful. He won by half the track. He won by a mile. That's what I saw from Kilcrush the last day at Leopardstown under Patrick Mullins. He didn't move. I could have ridden him. Anybody else could have ridden him in the OTB team, and he won so easily. Kilcrush. Paul Townend has picked him for the bumper today. I think he'll win. He's my nap of the day. Kilcrush, Kilcruit. So this horse, bred by the Mullins family, Kilcrush at 13-8, I think is a really good chance of winning the bumper, because as well at Navan the previous time when he was shaken up by Patrick Mullins, he found more up at Navan Hill. So I don't think the hill's going to be an issue, and Paul Townend picking Kilcrush will be a really good indicator of that. So check out otbsports.com and the OTB app in the next half an hour. 10:30, the Cheltenham show, Gilroy, Tom Malone, Johnny Ward, Paddy Power, myself, going through each race in the card, and we'll also give you the other fancies of the day. Remember, our coverage in association with Paddy Power. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham.
Get ready for the Cheltenham Festival with the Boyle Sports app, with a special offer guaranteed on every race, every day of the festival, plus extra places on each way bets over all 4 days. The Boyle Sports app has got you covered. Need to study up? Check out our Racing Post insights or watch our exclusive video previews with Cheltenham Gold Cup winning jockey Robbie Power. The Cheltenham Festival on the faster than ever Boyle Sports app. Boyle Sports. This is betting. Gamble responsibly. See gamblingcare.ie. 18+.
Off the ball.
I joke about it now. I can count on the number of times you've actually told me you're proud of me.
Oh, it's the truth. My father, it was only when he was dying in Wexford Hospital 19 years ago, and he said to me, my cousin was there, that he was proud of me. That he never said it.
No, are we blaming? We're not blaming you.
But
we're blaming Grandad.
Can I officially say I'm proud of him? But I'm proud of my daughter.
Thanks, Dad.
Off the ball. Weeknights from 7 and weekends from 1. This is OTB Sports Radio. OTB AM.
With Gillette, put your best face forward with our new and improved razors.
Yeah, 7 minutes past 9 here this morning on OTB AM. It is St. Patrick's Day. Happy St. Patrick's Day to you, wherever you are in the world, wherever you're listening to this. And thanks very much for sharing some time with us. I think, Eoin, traditional St. Patrick's Day route would be afternoon food and drinks with mates. That's essentially it, right?
If even, to be honest, like I definitely take away my Irish passport. I don't have any attachments to any sort of St. Patrick's Day tradition whatsoever. In fact, I don't think it's a particularly enjoyable day in Ireland. Like, I think the most crack I've managed to knock out of a St. Patrick's Day is just like maybe going to the All-Ireland Club finals and having a few pints around that. But generally everywhere is too busy. You can find good spots maybe the night beforehand. I really like the 16th as a night, because generally you're off on the 17th in normal times, that is. I like that night, but like I don't want to be a bah humbug, especially when people are trying to enjoy a day off this morning. But I just don't rate St. Patrick's Day as an occasion that much, to be honest.
It's like New Year's Eve.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good one. That's a really good comparison. And I think it actually also works for your whole point earlier on about going abroad for it. I think New Year's Eve, somewhere that's not your usual place, would be better than where you usually live or whatever. And I think that's certainly the case when it comes to St. Patrick's Day as well. So get on a plane next year, basically, is the plan. Yeah.
OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. If you want to get in touch with us this morning, 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. Now, Dermot Corrigan is with us this morning. Dermot, happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
Feliz Dia de San Patricio to todos.
Where are you?
Just outside Madrid.
Right. Is it a big day in Madrid? Is there anything in Madrid? Is there even any notice of it?
Not really. Like there usually would be a bit of crack around the Irish bars, with Spanish people getting involved as well. Villarreal, I just noticed on Twitter, have tweeted out a St. Patrick's Day message to all their fans, Irish fans around the world. But in it, typically there will be a little bit around. People would know about it, but it wouldn't be a huge celebration.
Yeah, okay. We're trying to find somewhere good to go for next year's St. Patrick's Day, so that our campaign starts now. If there's any town council or city council out there that would like OTB AM to broadcast live from their hotspot, then we're happy, Eoin, to volunteer for that, right?
Oh yeah, I'm all up for that for sure. Like, do you feel a greater attachment to a day like today, Dermot, having lived abroad and I guess not having Irishness in your face 365 days a year?
Maybe a little bit. Like, I have 2 little kids, and they wore their little green T-shirts this morning that have been provided by some family members, and we had some cards from people at home, which was nice. So I guess so. Like, I would just listen to you there, and I would agree that, look, like when I used to live in Ireland, that St. Patrick's Day in Dublin wasn't my favourite day of the year. But now you do look to it maybe a little bit more when you're away, and a chance to catch up with family and friends and things like that. So in that kind of way, it's nice. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. I had this premonition last night when I was looking at the results and going, this is the time of the year when Real Madrid all of a sudden cast off the crappy season they've been having and suddenly start winning games closely, and then all of a sudden explode into the Champions League semi-finals and finals and have a relatively routine 3-0 victory against somebody in the final. Is that what's going to happen this year? Have Real Madrid been doing their traditional rope-a-dope, where they're not having a great year whatsoever, but then at the end of it, they're holding up all big ears going, that's how this thing rolls, baby? That's what they're hoping. The problem with that is that it's the same players who used to do that 4 or 5 years ago, Ramos, Modric, Kroos, Benzema. They're still the players who are Madrid's most important leaders in the team, and the guys who they look to dig them out of holes. So last night against Atalanta, Modric was really good, Kroos was really good, Benzema scored the goal, Ramos had it handy enough at the back. The worry for Madrid's fans will be that all those guys are well into their 30s now, and a team full of younger, faster, say Kylian Mbappe or Haaland might have a different idea about what would happen. So Madrid are, financial reasons and just generally the team has grown old together. So they'd like to, that idea that you said there, they'd like for that to come through, but I'd be sceptical enough about it happening this year.
The injury crisis, Dermot, is something that's been hampering them for quite an amount of this season. I know you've been writing about this over the last few weeks. How much of this, according to Real Madrid fans, is down to coincidence, and how much is the club itself being blamed for what's happened? It's a really interesting one because Madrid have an amazing setup. Like, they have maybe the best training facility in the world. That's where the game was last night, where we were able to watch the Atalanta game, just a few of us who were able to get into it, the journalists. And the training ground is amazing. It's super modern setup there. They have France's World Cup winning fitness coach, was signed a couple of years ago. Zidane is big into fitness on the players. Madrid president Florentino Perez is big into making sure all the players are fit. But they have the worst injury record in La Liga, and players keep breaking down. You know, Hazard is the most obvious one, just because he's gone through such a hard spell, and every time he comes back, he seems to go out again. But other players have. You know, Ramos has been out 4 times. Dani Carvajal keeps breaking down. You know, something is definitely wrong there, and Zidane has said that he just can't explain it. The talk here was that Madrid had opened an internal inquiry. We're looking at what had gone wrong behind the scenes, whether it was to do with the way they were training, something going on in the medical staff, but nobody seems to know. But yeah, it's definitely holding them back, and it's definitely a worry for Madrid at the minute. It seems that Zidane got a lot of credit during his first stint for being a hard taskmaster and I guess taking these guys to new heights and achieving their potential. Is he getting the same level of criticism for being a hard taskmaster this year, considering it might be a little bit too hard given the build-up of games? Yeah, like Zidane he often says that if he can get his players to work as hard and to run as hard as their opponents, then Madrid's extra quality, the quality that the likes of Modric and Kroos have and Benzema, means that they're going to come out on top of most players, of most opposition teams. And they have, you know, maybe not in La Liga games, maybe when that has been a problem for them over the course of a season, that they wouldn't run as hard or be as intense, you know, week to week in the league, and that cost them. But when the big games came around, the Champions League, they did give everything and they had a tendency to come out on top. Zidane,
it's a weird one because he's such a renowned figure here for what he did as a player, and also, you know, winning 3 Champions Leagues in 2.5 seasons when he took over as coach. But there's always been kind of a certain amount of criticism or people who feel that he, you know, when it comes to organising a team or tactically, that he's not, you know, maybe the sharpest coach around. He moved the team to 3 centre backs last night. That something he seems to be trialling, maybe to try and make them a bit more solid defensively, thinking about the big games or the big challenges that are coming up in the Champions League. Not sure that that's going to work out. I don't know if that really suits the players that he has, but yeah, his idea has always been that if we run faster, if we run harder, then we'll come out on top. The older the team gets and the more injuries that they get, the harder that is to come true for them.
It's interesting. It's not a million miles away from the philosophy of Jurgen Klopp and his heavy metal football, which is obviously predicated on a lot of hard running. And you've seen how they've broken down this season as well. There's probably a little bit of the style involved there, but also a little bit of hope when it comes to both teams, that when these things clear up over the next few weeks, they should be able to put a run together in Europe. Yeah,
there is not that much optimism around Spain at the minute about the level of their teams. Like Barcelona, you know, the way they were hammered in the first leg by PSG, even when they came back and drew the second leg, they were kind of almost happy enough to go out with honour. We saw Sevilla were taken apart by Haaland. Atletico were going to have a tough task tonight against Chelsea. And even around Madrid, they don't, it's weird, but Madrid don't really see themselves as favourites for the competition. That it's funny how Madrid fans and the mood around the club can kind of manage to make them look like kind of plucky underdogs, or a little guy who's battling against the odds to try to come through. And they kind of see themselves a little bit that way against PSG or Man City or Chelsea, or teams who've been able to spend a lot more money recently. You know, in one way it doesn't make any sense because it's, you know, a team full of champions who are earning huge money. A lot of them were signed for big money, but they still, you know, if they were to win the Champions League this season, they would see it as something that they had achieved against the odds, strange as that may be for a neutral to think about.
Yeah. The Eden Hazard situation, I didn't realise that the latest speculation is that he's going to have surgery and a lower back injury, and that would rule him out of not just the rest of the season, but also the Euros. Yeah,
it's super difficult for him. It's just everything seems to have gone wrong from when he arrived first. He was overweight, then he had he broke his ankle, or his ankle was broken for him when he's playing against PSG in you know, a couple of months after he arrived, and he's never got over that. The talk is that it's affecting him, not that it's affecting him kind of mentally, that he's worried that he'll get injured all the time, but he's changed the way that he runs, the way that he moves, in order to subconsciously, in order to protect himself, to protect that ankle. There was a plate installed in the ankle, and there's also talk that maybe that hasn't worked out well, that it's causing him discomfort, that it's just affecting his whole balance, his whole rhythm as he runs, and that's causing him to break down in other areas. And Zidane super frustrated about it. Like, Zidane, huge fan of Hazard, knows Hazard personally, and had been a big backer for Hazard to be signed, you know, for years before he eventually arrived at the Bernabeu, and the two are very close. And Zidane keeps saying that sooner or later he's going to be a success here. But the amount of frustration, both from the coach and just generally around the club, at this, you know, huge guy who in a way was signed to replace Cristiano Ronaldo, and it just hasn't worked out at all. I saw one stat suggesting that he has as many injuries since he's arrived in Madrid as he has goals, and a case of COVID on top of it. Yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of a case of everything that can go wrong has gone wrong for him. And again, that comes back to what I was saying at the start, that because of that, Madrid are still so reliant on the older guys, on Ramos and Modric and Kroos, because everybody that they have tried to sign they have made an effort to try to renew the team, to bring in new players, but they're still stuck with the guys who were their champions from 6-7 years ago.
One other thing from last night, Dermot, that just struck me was that Vinicius opportunity, where he runs from his own half, plays at 1-2, an unbelievable piece of football, and then ends up putting the ball wide. You've watched a hell of a lot of him, I'd imagine, over the last few years. Is this indicative of where he's at the moment, that he doesn't really have that end product and that he's on the precipice of something special?
Yeah, like one move couldn't really sum up Vinicius any more than that. Like, he's super dribbler, he's super fast. Madrid rely on him a lot, you know, because they don't have that much pace elsewhere in the team. But once he gets in front of goal, his decision making is not so good at all. I think it's 12 goals in over 100 games that he's played for Madrid, and you know, nobody really trusts him to finish in front of goal, to have that composure. He's still only 20, and people, you know, the hope around Madrid is that as he gets older and as he gets more experience and becomes a bit calmer in front of goal, that it will be better and he will start to score the goals. But, it's become kind of a joke amongst Madrid fans, or, there's no fans at the stadium at the minute, but when there were fans at the stadium, there would be like, almost people would be expecting him to miss, and you had a feeling that he was expecting himself to miss. And you can see that in his teammates as well. Last night, he missed the first chance early in the first half. I'm not sure if you could see it on the TV, but we could see Benzema, did a anguish kind of jump up in frustration. Ramos as well, when he missed that amazing chance in the second half, fell to his knees, dramatic kind of collapse, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. And Vinicius knows that as well. He knows that his teammates they want him to score, but they don't trust him to score. And the feeling that until he kind of sorts that out, or if he's finally able to sort that out, he will be a great player. But if he can't, then he won't.
That's kind of the type of teammate I would expect Karim Benzema to be. I didn't really expect from Sergio Ramos at this stage of his career. I thought he'd be a bit more emotionally intelligent than that. But for Benzema, I'm like, yeah, I can see Benzema doing that all right.
Yeah, Benzema and Vinicius have a strange enough relationship in that Benzema is the older guy who, even on the pitch, you can see he's trying to coax the best out of Vinicius, or to set him up in best positions, and because Benzema is so clever with his movement and how he drags defences around, that he can open up the space to put Vinicius into. There was a famous, or for Madrid fans anyway, the cameras caught the Benzema talking to another French teammate in the tunnel, saying like, don't pass it to Vinicius, more or less. Everybody denied that that's what really had happened, but it was pretty clear that Benzema said something like, he's playing for the other team, like, don't give him the ball, give it to me instead. And that idea that Vinicius, that they don't know what's going to happen if they pass him the ball, and they're almost worried about giving him the ball because of what might happen, is not a good one to have in your team.
How are they actually playing? I suppose that's the most fundamental question I should have asked at the very start. Are they playing well enough, given the fact that it is these old stages, and they may well come up against a younger, fitter, hungrier, better team, but are they actually playing well at the moment?
No. Through the whole season, they've gone on stages where they go for a while playing okay, then they hit a crisis. They've lost to Cadiz, Alaves, Levante. Then suddenly it seems like Zidane is under pressure for his job, and the whole team, the media hear about how in the summer everybody's got to go, Ramos is gone, Modric is gone. Then they come to a big game, whether it's the Clásico against Barca back in the autumn or against Atletico, and they pull it out. They manage to find a way to win those games. But Barca and Atletico aren't in a great moment either. And Madrid's top level at the moment is nowhere near what it was 3 or 4 years ago. And again, they could prove me wrong, because these guys are still great players. But the feeling is that against the very best teams in Europe, that Madrid, even when they raise their game, it won't be enough to beat the very best.
When any team is talking about a lack of goals at the moment, or an attacker like Vinicius who perhaps isn't hitting the heights just yet, it's going to be a tough year to not make a move for either Haaland or Mbappe when you are Real Madrid, I'd imagine. Where are they fixed at the moment when you look over at Barcelona and know that they're in massive debt, and yet might still get the finances available from a bank loan to be able to potentially try and persuade Haaland to come to the Camp Nou? I presume that adds a whole other layer of pressure onto Real Madrid to get something big done this year.
Yeah, the talk for a couple of years has been that Madrid were after Kylian Mbappe, that Zidane, has worked a good relationship, a personal relationship with Mbappe, was persuading him to come. Mbappe was a Madrid fan as a kid, had Cristiano Ronaldo posters on his wall. And the feeling was that after, a few years in Paris Saint-Germain, that he would eventually end up at Madrid. Madrid's problem is that the crisis, the COVID pandemic hit just as they were renewing or rebuilding the Bernabeu stadium. So they've had to take out a big loan for that. And they've not been hit quite as badly as Barcelona. They're not in the same kind of awful state as Barca are, but their finances are not great. Right at the minute, they're trying to negotiate pay cuts with the players. Guys who are out of contract like Ramos and Modric in the summer, they're going to have to accept reduced terms. And the idea that they could do that to their current players and then bring in Mbappe, who's going to ask for a huge amount of money to be easily the best player at the club, is going to be difficult to manage kind of diplomatically within the dressing room. Madrid fans would love Mbappe or Haaland to come in. There's talk that Madrid have a great relationship with Dortmund, because they've loaned players in between them over recent years a good bit. The two chief executives seem to be quite tight, and Haaland might be a cheaper option than Mbappe, but even still Madrid don't have a huge amount of money to spend on it. So again, that goes back to what I was saying before, that they almost see themselves as being poorer relations compared to Man City or to Paris Saint-Germain, that they don't have the money to compete right at the very top of the transfer market the way they used to, which is a strange position for Madrid to be in. But if they were to push the boat out to sign Mbappe or Haaland, it would be a really big move for them. And, you wouldn't put it past Florentino Perez because he has the connections and he can magic up money from different places when he needs to, but it would be a big challenge for him.
Can we talk a little bit about tonight's game? A lot of people were quite surprised by the way that Atleti took on Chelsea in the first game, and they obviously suffered for that. So what happened there? Because we've been hearing about this was a new version of Atletico Madrid, and Diego Simeone had changed the team. Didn't quite look like it looked like an old school kind of from 6-7 years ago Atletico Madrid team. Yeah, for sure. And stuff I've been writing on the Athletic and just watching them week to week, Atletico have made a big effort to play a different type of football. They've got three at the back. They've a lot more footballers in the team than they used to. Players like João Felix, even some of their centre backs are kind of ball playing centre backs. They're not the Diego Godin, warrior types of the past. And through the autumn they were flying. They got 50 points, record number of points for Atletico. We're flying, 11 points clear of Barcelona at the top of the league at one stage if they had won all their games in hand. The wheels just kind of started to come off around January. The timing of the Chelsea first leg was really bad for them. A mixture of injuries. Kieran Trippier is a really important player for them, being banned by the FA for that betting offence, which, from this perspective here in Spain was a crazy thing to happen to them. They got a good few COVID cases in January as well. And Simeone, when these type of off-the-field factors kind of hit him, he went back to what he knows the best to try to dig out an ill-all. But the problem was that he doesn't have those warrior-type players anymore. The guys that he has in the squad now are more comfortable playing passing football and going on the attack. So when they tried to defend against Chelsea, it didn't work out too well. They kind of got caught between two stools, and it was one of the worst performances of the season. The one thing about Chelsea is that they're not fully firing themselves in terms of their attacking flair, despite the fact that they've invested €1 billion in the attacking midfielders and strikers that they have on their books. It's very early in Tuchel's reign, and he hasn't quite got a fully functioning attack just yet. So this tie is not dead, despite the fact that Atletico are 1-0 down heading into the second leg. Yeah, I'd imagine it'll be very, very tight tonight. That Chelsea will be, they know that if they keep a clean sheet, they go through, and Atletico are unlikely to pile players forward. They will play they will have more of their better attacking players back. Trippier is really important to them. He should play right wing back, Carrasco at left wing back, and it looks like João Felix is going to start. Like, João Felix is a super interesting one. He's kind of the symbol of this new Atletico. He's a silky ball player. He's not the hardest working off the ball. Simeone's been trying to kind of mold him into a Simeone type player, which hasn't gone exactly as Simeone or João Felix had hoped. But if they're going to score a goal, the most likely is for João Felix to create something, maybe for Luis Suarez to finish tonight. So if João Felix is in the starting lineup, it means Atletico are going to try and go on the front foot, try and play a little bit more football, and hope that they will be able to I don't expect them to go roaring forward or to go all out attack, but maybe that would give them a little bit more chance of breaking through that tough Chelsea defence. What do you expect to happen? 0-0 seems like the most likely result in the game. Atletico, they do. I'd like to think that Atletico could put on a better attacking show. I've seen them play some really good football this season in some of the other games against Barcelona. Back in the autumn, they played really well and really pummeled Barca in that game and could have won. They won 1-0, but they could have won more easily. So if they go for it, maybe they will be able to unlock Chelsea, but the head would say that 0-0 and Chelsea to go through is the most likely result. Dermot, good stuff. Thanks a million for joining us, and happy St. Patrick's Day again. Cheers. Same to you guys. Dermot Corrigan from The Athletic there. OTB AM live in association with Gillette. Good morning. Start with Gillette, giving you the confidence to tackle the day ahead. Tomorrow morning from 7:30, we're talking Ireland-England with Ugo Monye. We'll have Champions League reaction, Cheltenham tips, our OTB TV picks with Sue, and much more as well. A reminder for now, the Cheltenham show on OTB Sports, Paddy Power is live from 10:30 this morning. Don't feel like a punter, feel like a favourite this Cheltenham. We're going to hear from Dan McDonnell in a moment on Stephen Kennedy's options just a week out from Serbia. First though, Rachel Blackmore joined Joe Malloy and John Duggan on OTB after her historic win yesterday at day one of the Cheltenham Festival. Enjoy.
So day one at Cheltenham is where we're turning to. Star of the show was, of course, Tipperary's finest, Rachel Blackmore, winner of the champion hurdle aboard Honeysuckle, first female jockey to win a championship race at Cheltenham. We are now 10 years on from her first win as an amateur at Thurles back when she was 21. She turned professional in 2015. Nothing to lose, in her own words. roll of the dice really to try and get more rides because they weren't all that forthcoming at the time. And then her first Cheltenham winner was 2 years ago. Now today it's very much a landmark one, a historic one for the 31-year-old. Here were the closing stages.
Honeysuckle moves into the home straight with a 2-length lead to Aspire Tower in second. Charger has moved into third. Epatante is behind those in fourth, but Honeysuckle is galloping clear as she races towards the last. A lovely leap. She cleared it safely and heads up the hill now. Honeysuckle and Rachel Blackmore clear from Charger. Epatante behind those. It's a beautiful straight. 11 victories for Honeysuckle. She is the winner of the Unibet Champion Hurdle. Charger in second. Epatante, Aspire Tower.
Yeah, an amazing win, a comprehensive win to say the least. Afterwards, here's an emotional Rachel Blackmore trying to make sense of what had just happened.
This was never even a dream. It was so far from what I ever thought could happen in my life. To be in Cheltenham, riding the winner of a champion hurdle, it's just so far removed from anything I ever thought could be possible. So maybe there's a lesson in that for everyone out there, but yeah, it's incredible. You can't do it without getting on the right horses. I've been extremely lucky in that sense, and getting linked up with a yard like Henry de Bromhead. You need to be riding those horses, and yeah, that's a massive part of any jockey's career. Being in the right place at the right time and getting linked up with the right yard.
Rachel, you told us the story about going to see Isterbrack when you were a schoolgirl. It's sort of almost like full circle now. You are a champion hurdle winner. That is an amazing story, isn't it, really, I suppose? Yeah, it's incredible. We went to see Isterbrack, as you say, on a school tour. I'm from Tipperary, so it was local, and it was, I never envisaged back then when we went to see him, I'd one day be riding the winner of the champion hurdle. When every person becomes a jockey, they dream about riding in Cheltenham and all these things, but like riding a winner like this is just unbelievable.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah, we're going to chat with Henry de Bromhead in a few moments. Trying to get hold of people over in Cheltenham is fun and games on a week like this, as you can imagine. John Duggan is with us. John, if racing and if Cheltenham needed a good news story, they got one.
Oh, they got a huge one, Joe. Good evening. This is a major story. It's front pages a few weeks ago for the wrong reasons, and front pages tomorrow for the right reasons. 1927 was the first champion hurdle, and this is the first time a woman has won the championship race, and it was easy for Honeysuckle. And Rachel Blackmore, never been beaten, 12 times now, 11 times under rules, once at a point-to-point, and anybody who was a fan of the horse in the race wouldn't have had too many things to be worrying about, because Rachel just kicked on around the bend, and the rest of them were out with the washing, and it was just a beautiful performance from a mare that's improving. Won the mare's hurdle last year against her own sex over 2.5 miles, and then came back to win the championship race today over 2 miles. And just credit to Rachel, as you outlined there. She's had a long slog at it. In 2015-16, she only rode 6 winners, and that was the first year she turned pro. Like Nina Carberry, Katie Walsh didn't turn pro. Rachel decided to have a go at it. She's a positive rider. She's got a quiet style. She works very hard. And people have backed her. The O'Leary's backed her, Michael and Eddie. Henry de Bromhead has backed her, and she's repaid them. 84 winners in Ireland this year, and now her 4th winner at Cheltenham. It's a brilliant story.
Yeah, I was listening to Henry de Bromhead talking to Ger and Johnny a couple of weeks back, and he was saying it was Eddie O'Leary in a taxi around Aintree just in 2017 saying, what about Rachel? And gave her a few rides and just took off, and she started winning, and it's been this fantastic partnership. And as you said, Cheltenham winner, first Cheltenham winner was in 19, and now a day like today caps it all off. So, as you said, for people who didn't catch this race, it was a dominant performance. Blackmore made it look very, very easy. She said afterwards, John, that Honeysuckle keeps surprising me, keeps getting better, jumping is slicker almost every time, things easier for her in each race. So, I mean, there's a high enough ceiling, I would think, for this mare.
There is. She's only 7, and she's obviously improved. And the best performance I'd seen before today was her last one, when she slammed Abracadabras by 9 lengths at Leopardstown to win the Irish champion hurdle for the 2nd year in a row. When she won it last year, it was much tighter. And Kenny Alexander, the owner, said, I want to have a Cheltenham winner. So last year they said, OK, we'll take the easier option, the mare's hurdle. They won that race. Now they got that, they extinguished that desire. They said, OK, why don't we take on the big boys in the champion hurdle? And she had the form, and she came into it in form. The other horses, like Abracadabras, fell in the race. Goshen was jumping out to the right. And once those two were out of the picture, you really Epatante, last year's winner, was the only horse you could think of a big danger. But she didn't really run as well as she did last year. But I think the race was stronger this year for the presence of Honeysuckle, who horses can improve, and she's improved, and she's peaked right now. Can she do it again next year? Absolutely she can, because she's versatile over soft and good ground. So the sky's the limit for her. She's been carefully handled by Henry de Bromhead. He doesn't over-race her. And I think that, she can definitely go back-to-back next year.
Yeah, for de Bromhead, it's a really big day as well. I think that's his 10th Cheltenham Festival win. First champion hurdle, trains out of Waterford, obviously.
13 years ago, he had Size in Europe, a horse who was favoured for the champion hurdle, and Size in Europe was pulled up with a back injury. That was very painful at the time for Henry. He'd never trained a Cheltenham winner before that. His dad, Harry de Bromhead, trained a Cheltenham winner in 1993, Fisher Seal. So there's a family history there. But Henry, once again, has been a long time at the game, and started off, he'd Alan Potts as a big owner, Size in Europe, then came back and won the champion chase at Cheltenham. Then he had Special Tiara won the champion chase. But like a lot of other trainers and jockeys, it's taken a long time for Henry to get to the position where he's now one of the top 4 or 5 trainers in Ireland and Britain. And obviously we've seen the Gordon Elliott horses going to him, like Envo Allen, who's probably the best, most promising horse in training. That Henry's got a lot of ammunition now.
Yeah.
And one thing about Henry is he's very good at training horses to jump. And I think we saw that with Honeysuckle. You need to jump well in the champion hurdle. He did that today.
Yes.
She did that, rather.
Sure did. Listen, John, stay with us, because very happy to say Rachel Blackmore unexpectedly joins us on the line. Rachel, you can hear us okay there?
I can hear you, lads. Yeah, how are y'all?
We're great. I mean, not half as good as you, but we're great.
That's
so listen.
Sure. That's for sure.
Well done, Rachel.
You're live. You're live on the radio, just in case you're not sure what's going on, because I'm sure phones are being handed to you left, right, and centre. So listen, wow, amazing.
Yeah, incredible. I don't even feel I have the words to describe it, to be honest. It's been an unbelievable day. It's the champion hurdle, so it's just very, very special, and fantastic to be a part of.
We played a little clip of your press conference just before you came on, and what jumped out was that you were saying, even growing up, this wasn't even the dream. Like, you've surpassed whatever dreams you might have had.
Yeah, like I dreamed of being a jockey and of riding winners, but like I could never even have envisaged I'd ride the winner of a champion hurdle someday. So to be in the position I'm in, with the backing of Henry de Bromhead, to get on these kind of horses, it's unbelievable. And the training performance he's done with her, to get her every day in tip-top shape, like she's improving. He has her improving. Right? It's unbelievable.
You're having this extraordinary career, and we were just talking about it before you came on. 2011 in Thurles, 10 years ago, your first win as an amateur, and then you turned pro in 15, and you have your first Cheltenham winner 2 years ago. So you've been building for a long time. What was it like today, this morning, Rachel? That pressure, I suppose, of the big favourite in the big race. I mean, was it a nervous morning? Did you sleep okay last night, or was it a tricky enough 24 hours?
You know what? I actually slept great. I was very tired. We'd travelled over from Ireland, and it was a busy day on Monday. So yeah, I slept great. I probably woke an hour or two earlier than I usually would. So the adrenaline was maybe a little higher than usual, but look, it's a champion hurdle. The races in Cheltenham, there is extra pressure attached to them, but when you're going out on something like Honeysuckle, very straightforward to ride, it's a big help.
What are your final thoughts? Because we're watching on TV, and we're keeping a very close eye on you guys as you're circling around, ready to go. What are you telling yourself then? Or are you giving yourself any messages, or what tends to crop into your mind in those final moments before showtime? You're just in the zone then. You're just riding in a race then, I suppose, like any other day. And the minute you get the leg up in the parade ring and you walk down the chute and you canter off, nerves kind of disappear then, to be honest. You're doing your job, and you've all the homework done at that stage, and you're just going out and trying to ride the best race you can.
So yeah, it's great. It works out.
Did it go to plan? Was it the type of race you expected? Did you do what you were planning to do?
Yeah, I'd always planned to line up where I did and keep my options open, and I was hoping that, you know, the field wouldn't congest and I'd be pushed too wide, but it didn't. I was able to slot in one off the rail down the back. Was happy where I was, and yeah, look, the way she, in the manner in which she finished, you know, I could have rode her a few different ways, I'd say.
Yeah, that looked like, you know, slotted into 6th gear and cruise home. I mean, what a way to win.
Oh, incredible. You know, she's an unbelievable engine to have under you.
When you turn on your phone, who do you call first?
I rang Peter Maloney, Kenny Alexander, my parents. They were top of the list.
And so, give us what was the word from the parents? Was it screams down the phone, or are they a bit more reserved, or what was coming up from the phone line from Tipperary?
They were just delighted. You know, I get a massive kick out of it, but you know they get a massive one as well. So actually, they're just so pleased. You know, the general consensus from everyone was probably a bit of sadness that they couldn't be here. You know, delighted, but you know, that's just the way things are, unfortunately, this year. And we're all very grateful to the massive work that everyone's put in getting Cheltenham on and getting us Irish over there. And you know, we're you know, there's very strict protocols that we have to adhere to. You know, I'm currently eating my dinner inside my room here, inside in the Irish bubble. But yeah, we're very grateful to all the work that's gone into getting us here.
And your parents, I presume they've been, you know, so supportive all the way. Did they have misgivings about you getting into this world? And I don't even mean because you're female. I just mean because it's such a bloody tough world, son or daughter. It's not an easy road. Have they been kind of pushing you along all the way when you've had the odd doubt here or there, or were they even maybe had a few doubts themselves?
No, they've been nothing but supportive. I think they've kind of left it up to me. Like I after my leaving cert, I did college and I got that done, and you know, this kind of fell my way then, and you know, yeah, look, they've been extremely supportive, and you know, as I say, getting as much a kick out of it as anyone.
So you said you're eating your dinner now in the Irish bubble. How does all that work? Are you in a cottage or is it a hotel, or what's life like there this evening?
Yeah, so we're in a hotel that's you don't have to access a public road to get to it. It's right on the back of Cheltenham. So we're all staying there, separate rooms, we'll say, and you know, you have your dinner in your room, and it's there's a lot of different protocols we have to go through to get over here. We were all tested. We're tested again before we come home. We're not integrating with the English jockeys at all, or anyone, you know, any English stable staff. It's all completely separate. So the Irish people are not interacting with anyone else.
Right. Okay. So when you finish dinner, is it feet open, watch TV for the night?
Chill out. A massive bath in the room, so I might have a bath.
Watch the race a couple of thousand times over, I guess.
Yeah, you said it. You said it.
John Duggan, I'm sure you have a question there listening.
Rachel, are you now in bonus territory going for this Gold Cup on Friday and a Plutarch? You got a big chance?
Yeah, massive chance. Really looking forward to riding them. It was a great way to start the week today, obviously, but there's a lot of races still. Really looking forward to them.
Well, listen, I'm conscious, and I'm sure you're doing interviews and running around, and that bath is calling out, I'd say, like nothing else. So we'll let you go, and just big congratulations. Geez, for somebody who doesn't like the limelight, you keep hogging it, you know, front page news tomorrow.
I'm happy out.
Well, you should be. Listen, big congratulations again.
Well,
amazing.
Bye.
Rachel Blackmore, John, we genuflect at the altar.
Wonderful story. What a story. I had a tear in my eye, Joe, when she crossed the winning line, I have to say. I just thought it was a fantastic story. And for Irish sport, and not just for racing, for Irish sport, it's just a brilliant story to win a championship race. And we had 5 winners today, but that was, as I said before the week, that was one of the key stories. Would she win it? And she got a chance in the Gold Cup now. And that'll be the story of the week, whatever happens. Unless she wins the Gold Cup, that'll be the story of the week.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned the other winners today. We should briefly just round it off for people. I mean, I don't know if it's I say a sense of kind of superstition or whatever, but when the day started with Appreciated, the big favourite, winning comfortably for Willie Mullins in the Supreme Novice Hurdle, followed by Sheahan in the Arkle for Nicky Henderson, winning comfortably. I kind of thought, is this going to happen again for Honeysuckle? Just it'd be too much of a good thing, and obviously it did. But Sheahan and Appreciated were as impressive winners as Honeysuckle was.
They were, Joe, and I think both horses have big futures. Appreciated, a bit like Honeysuckle, you might have thought wanted further, but this was over 2 miles. The ground was soft at the start of the day. It did dry out, but won by 24 lengths. Was a very impressive victory, and once again, he'd be definitely a horse for the champion hurdle. Be interested to see what he could do over further. So I think he's actually surprised Willie Mullins as trainer what he's done in the last few months. Sheahan is a horse that won at the festival last year, a really good jumper. There was only 5 runners in the race.
Yeah.
The race was kind of set up for him, but he won it well. But then you get these strange results, Joe. You had a 28-1 winner then in the next race in the handicap chase, Vintage Clouds, on his 5th appearance in the race, and then an 80-1 winner of the juvenile hurdle, and a first festival winner for Wexford jockey Sean Flanagan for Meath trainer Noel Meade with Jeff Kidder. So anybody around the country who had a few quid on Jeff Kidder will be booking their holiday for somewhere nice when the pandemic's over.
And Black Tears for Denise Foster, in place obviously of Gordon Elliott, won the Mares Hurdle as well.
Yeah, and that was a head win over Concertistas. Black Tears has run well at the festival before, and that was one of 2 winners for the Kerry jockey, Jack Kennedy. You're talking about Rachel as well. And Jack Kennedy's only 21, hard to believe. He's still so young.
Yeah.
Jack Kennedy, he burst onto the scene when he was a young lad, and he rode the winner of the last race, Galvin. So it's interesting that he rode a winner for Denise Foster, and then Galvin was taken out of Gordon Elliott's yard and is trained now by Ian Ferguson, who actually had him at the start of his career in Ballymena. And Galvin, the change of yards didn't make any difference because he won the last race quite snugly.
Okay. So you said 5 Irish winners today. Of how many races? 6?
7.
7.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Right. Okay. That's a very acceptable start.
This Ryder Cup thing, Joe, is going the way of Ireland every single year at the moment, because British horse racing has got some issues with prize money, and the fact that owners are not getting into the jumps game as much as they are into the flat game.
Right, okay. 19 is the record, isn't it? I think there was 7.
That's right, 2017, yeah.
17 Irish winners last year. In a line, I guess, of about 30 seconds, John, what are you looking out for tomorrow? What's going to be the story tomorrow?
Willie Mullins has got 3 hot pots. Shakin Persois, he's never won the champion chase. That is the hot favourite for Willie Mullins in that big race, the 2-mile race over fences. Monkfish has been really impressive for me in the novices chase for Willie. And then the bumper, the race which he's really farmed as his own over the last 2 decades, he's got Kilcrush and Sir Gerhard. That'll be a really good clash. I think Kilcrush might win that. But Willie tomorrow, and if all 3 of them can win, the bookies will be maybe licking their wounds for once in their lives.
Serbia do have a new manager, I suppose. This is the point, there's Stojkovic, a legendary player. Dragan Stojkovic, legendary player of the late 80s, early 90s, and I suppose, listen, I'm sort of supposing here a bit, but you'd assume a bit of a local legend character who's come in, and there might be a bit of euphoria behind the new appointment, that bounce, but it still is he's working with the players, so you could talk about that. But I think the problem for Kenny is not so. It's that the fact that he has a couple of days together, reacting to what was a turbulent November, and again he's missing so many players in his squad who you would he's had 5 months to think about this game, and I'd be fairly sure no matter how pragmatic you are about, well, we might have injuries, I'm sure they've done a game plan in their head several times.
Yeah.
And it has involved several people who aren't going to be there now.
Well, sorry, that was the reason I brought this up. So Adamida has been officially ruled out of the World Cup qualifiers with Serbia, Luxembourg, and then the Qatar game as well on the Tuesday. Faces possible surgery on a hernia problem. So where we are, and I may be missing somebody here, but where we are is that Aaron Connolly is a doubt. He's currently nursing a cracked rib, and he's been out of the last couple of games at Brighton, and he certainly won't play before the international break, but he's actually hoping, this was the latest dispatch from Connolly, he's hoping he can recover in time to play against Serbia, which would be a massive boost. So Connolly is a question mark. Darren Randolph, as you said, is out. John Egan in the centre of defence, as we know, is out. We have James McCarthy out, and then question mark over McLean.
No, James McLean is going to be fine. I had a story last week just saying that he's planning to travel. He's going to be in. But yeah, the ones you mentioned, Connolly seems to be maybe not ruling himself out. Yeah, McCarthy, it looks to be out of the equation. And yeah, I mean, John Egan's such a big part of the team. Stephen Kenny last week people might wonder where the Randolph news. So last week, Stephen Kenny did this event that was organised by the FAI, and it was I gathered there was around 400 or 500 supporters groups represented in this event, various fans and stuff. But a couple of us got to see it as well. And sort of he started off giving a presentation of, clips from the games in the first sort of 8 games in charge, then some stuff from the 21s, and spoke about his team and his plans, and then took questions from the fans and stuff. And yeah, it was probably useful enough exercise to some degree. But one big thing that came out of it was he was speaking about, positive play against Slovakia and the importance of John Egan stepping out from the back and what he offers to the side, which I think you could interpret as a hidden message, as if to say, and I don't have him next week, by the way. I mean, everyone has to be political to some degree, and Kenny's going to face questions, and probably needs to make that point to people that, there's big elements of his side missing here. So he's going to have to improvise in whatever he does, and it's basically the case for this game that they're going to execute a plan from the importance of the staff's homework and scouting and sort of match prep. I mean, it's always important, but generally if you have 4, 5, 6 days with your players, you've got a bit more time to work it out. Whereas this is cramming for an exam here. And it's a real test of management and coaching staff to get their messages across to players in that short space of time, 48 hours. It'd be interesting to hear some people who've been through that situation maybe speak about that in the lead up to the game. How much can you do in 48 hours? Because all these players, as much as you'd like to think they're sitting around thinking about Serbia, and some of them probably are. James McLean, I can imagine, and others are thinking about it. But others have been in Enda Stevens has been relegated. The Sheffield United is about to get relegated. He's lost his manager, Chris Wilder. The players have all had different things in their minds. Some are in promotion races, and other issues. So to get their head in the game is, that in itself is going to be a challenge. So almost every minute of the camp probably needs to be timed very well.
Yeah, I hadn't actually realised it was Wednesday. So Premier League schedule finishes up Sunday, as you say. They meet up on Sunday in Manchester. They have one training session Monday. They presumably fly out to Serbia on the
I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Monday evening. That could be right. And they might do a bit on the Sunday, but it won't be full. It won't be full. Yeah.
Either way, it's one proper training session Monday, and regardless of when they fly out, then it's Tuesday training at the stadium the night before, which is really not much. That's just a few little bits, maybe set pieces, but it's a limber up. So I mean, whatever they're going to do, it's going to have to be fairly digestible to the group, because they get one crack to get everybody on the same page.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it, And listen, I know that I saw Aaron Connolly did a piece there. I think it was at balls.ie and mentioned that Stephen Kenny rang him during the the interview or something. And
how's your rib?
Yeah. And I know I don't know if it's the case under Kenny, but I would presume there's a version of it like that. There's obviously sort of scouting devices and stuff they can do. You can send clips to players or whatever to have a look at this or that, and if you're going to be up against this or that. I mean, but the one thing we haven't mentioned as well, is obviously the fact that it's going to be it's either going to be Caoimhín Kelleher's international debut, or it's going to be someone else, who's playing the biggest game of their life. Kelleher has played some big games in Liverpool for the Champions League. And again, would it be in closed doors? Does that take away some of the intimidation factor? But it's still nerves of playing for your country and all of that. But he has to prove he's fit this week in training to get the permission to go. But he's going in for his debut, he's been around squads and stuff. But still, he'll be playing with a lot of these players for the first time in a sort of match scenario, other than maybe sort of behind closed doors stuff, in training. So that's another new element. I suppose. I mean, listen, there might be some 21s players involved that he's played with, but still, that's another element to throw into it. So you have to be very much on point with everything you do. But this is why obviously some people will have the view, and this will be part of the debate, and you suspect it always will be to some degree with Kenny. But people will say, well, do you need to just, I don't know, muck in and sort of, play the percentages and just try not to lose, rather than try anything too elaborate. But I mean, that's not going to be the way that they approach things, I don't believe. But obviously, just because I say that, it doesn't mean that, if there's 15, 20 minutes to go, I think, they'd be pragmatic enough to know not to do anything stupid if it's a draw, because a draw would be a great result for them, So that's another element to the thing as well, They had a situation last week where Troy Parrott scored his first senior goal in English football, and I can't see Troy starting at all. Some will debate whether he's going to be in the squad, but I gather he's not going to be with 21s, or that seems to be the chat anyway. So you'd imagine he'll be with the seniors. But do you sort of take a gamble with 10-15 minutes to go if it's level pegging and send in someone like that? I mean, James Collins, I think, was the player who was probably in line to play, but he hasn't even played for Luton the last couple of weeks, So coming off the bench there this evening, so not exactly brimming with forward players that are sort of putting their hand up. So does that mean then you naturally become a bit more defensive in that respect?
Yeah. I was going to ask you about who starts up front or who leads the line. So there's Aaron Connolly. He has been playing out on the left-hand side for Kenny. Maybe he looks at the current situation and says, well, you're playing through the middle. That's one option. There's also Shane Long. There's Callum Robinson, who's not playing much football either at the moment for West Brom. And then there's James Collins, who is not playing very much for Luton. So are they basically his options?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just looking to see Shane Long was playing tonight for, he's not playing tonight. He's playing for Bournemouth against Swansea tonight, but he's unused sub. So I think he's done okay since he's gone on loan to Bournemouth, but not put his hand up and saying, pick me, type of form. I think they are the options. I mean, there's no doubt that if they thought Connolly was 100% fit, he'd be in the starting 11, I think. And they're very. You probably need to do, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I mean, Serbia's attributes and how they are defensively and stuff. But there's no doubt the reason they see Connolly as an option is because his pace, his threat. Like he didn't play in November. The last time he played for Ireland was, in fact, the only time he's played for Ireland in October, November was that game in Finland, where he actually was a threat, but then said himself he made some bad decisions. He should have passed a couple of times when he didn't. But you could see when he was moved centrally, he just gave them something.
Well, I was just going to say, if there is an element with this game, as much as it might go against the ideals of Stephen Kenny, but if there is a degree of sitting in and being pragmatic and defensively sound, it's a very nice outball to have if Connolly's leading the line.
Yeah, but it's an outball, but it's also would still be viewed as the more bolder move than, say, starting James Collins, who will give you a service, and will be physical and will try and hold the ball up. And I think the part of the debate,
there's not as much threat there, though, really.
Well, listen, I take your point, but I think it's about if you look like you might be light in other areas or rely on younger players in other areas, the logic would be you have a sort of a presence who can maybe bring players into the game, and then Connolly, you have that pace breaking off him maybe.
And is Collins good enough? Is his hold-up play good enough to do that?
No, yeah, listen, he's not the quickest, but he does have he does have a bit of presence about him, and he's quite strong. But he's not Shane Long is quick, but the criticism of Shane Long has always been that his hold up play wouldn't be one of his strengths. He'd be sort of running off the shoulder of someone. That's why Darryl Murphy was preferred by the end of Martin O'Neill's time.
Well, the elephant in the room, obviously, is Dave McGoldrick. I mean, that's who you'd love to be there, who could lead the line. The ball would stick. It would give the likes of Connolly and others they'd be encouraged knowing that McGoldrick can keep the ball here. So if I get galloping, he'll pick me out. That's the brilliance of somebody like McGoldrick. So how, in comparison with a McGoldrick, how does a Collins rank in terms of hold-up play?
No, you see, he wouldn't have the technical ability.
Yeah.
In terms, McGoldrick would drop deep, get on the ball and thread a ball through.
Yeah.
But Collins can hold the ball up and bring other players into it. He's just he's a decent player, and he's at a certain level. But obviously, I think if you pick Collins, then it also makes it puts a big onus on what you put around him. Is he tempted, for example, to try Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman in the same side? You would say that's probably a possibility. That one of them would be more advanced, and that Doherty more than likely be more advanced. But then that has a knock-on impact on your midfield and possibly even your central strikers. So these are all the elements they have to factor into it. I assume they'll be studying the fact that Scotland went to Serbia and did a pretty good job there against them. They basically got to the Euros by virtue of a penalty shootout after a scoreless 120 minutes. But by all accounts, from chatting to people who've watched the game, the perception was that Scotland did a job in Serbia. They neutralised their strengths, and caused them a few problems. So it might be worth looking at that to see as a sort of a bit of a template as to how they managed to execute it.
Tom Watson, you're welcome to Golf Weekly.
Hey, this is going to be fun.
Very happy to say European captain and, of course, 3-time major winner Padraig Harrington joins us.
Today's special guest on Golf Weekly is Lee Westwood.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm honoured and delighted.
Let's bring in Paul McGinley, who joins us now. Paul, you're very welcome.
Shane Lowry, how are you keeping?
I'm good, thanks, yeah. Well, I'm as good as I can be.